Come in here. It's fancy. Okay, we ready? We ready? Good evening and welcome to the 6 p.m. Special City Council meeting. Today is Tuesday, November 9th, 2021. Let the roll call reflect that all council members are present with the exception of Councilmember Nadolski and Councilmember Lopez, who have both asked to be excused. I'm not sure. Councilmember Lopez, are you still on? Okay, I didn't know if he was still with us. We'll begin with a Pledge of Allegiance offered by Vice Chair White.
Please rise if you are able. Repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you. We would ask that you now join with us in a moment of silence. Okay. Thank you. First up, we have a request to be on the agenda. We have Chief Young here for the Ogden Police Department UCOPA accreditation. Chief Young.
Chair, before we do that, I made a statement earlier in our work session that I was going to make a motion to take some public comment. The start of this meeting really changed the way that is going to look, and I don't think that's going to work very well, so I just wanted you to know that we're going to take the agenda as it is.
Thank you. Chief Young.
Let me introduce real quick. This is Val Shoup, and he's the president of the Utah Chiefs of Police Association's former chief of police in South Ogden. Many of you probably recognize him.
Thanks, Chief. Councilman Mayor, it's a pleasure to be here today on behalf of the Utah Chiefs of Police Association. As the executive director, I'm in charge of making sure that the accreditation program in the state of Utah moves forward. The accreditation program, just to give you a little bit of a background, is run by the Utah Chiefs of Police Association. Those who apply for this program have 5 years to complete, or 3 years to complete that system. Your department did it sooner than that. And kudos to Chief Young and prior chief for stepping up and making that move and to get their department accredited. Just to give you a background, there are 186 standards in the accreditation process that they have to meet. Those standards include federal laws, city ordinances, and every year we have to review those and send them updates. They right now also are mandated to have a chokehold policy and a use of force policy in their policy manual in order to even apply for grants with the federal government. Ogden City has complied with that. They are a part of their policy comes through to us. We have assessors who come in and check the policies and the standards, and if they meet those standards, then they have an assessment, an on-site assessment where we question, we look at their evidence room, we look at different things that they do as far as discipline and how they handle themselves with those matters. And once that they have met those standards, then they are sent before the board of directors for approval, and they were approved in August of 2021. So we appreciate the opportunity to be here, and we certainly congratulate Chief Young and his staff for the hard work that they did in putting this together. We want to present them with a plaque, which will they can put this where they'd like to. This accreditation is good for 5 years. They will have to each year submit a report to us that they are up to date on all the standards. In 5 years, they'll have to reaccredit. And just so for the benefit of the monetary part of this accreditation is paid for by we have all the insurance companies that insure the cities pay for the accreditation. So you were reimbursed back for this accreditation to cover that cost. So that was a good thing for you. Having said that, this plaque says Ogden City Police Department approved and accredited in recognition for the completion of the standards for certification and accreditation as prescribed and mandated by the Utah Chiefs of Police Association, August 2021. Congratulations, Chief.
Thanks, Phil. Appreciate you. So the chief's job can be good and bad. When things go bad, I get to take the heat for it. And when things go good, I get to take credit for it. But this is not my work. So I want to thank some people who are the ones that were so critical to getting this done. This process started with Chief Watt in late 2019. And there were 3 different individuals from the police department who worked on this over their time. And 2 of them are online. And I want to thank them. The first one is retired Captain Troy Burnett. He's online joining us from Homosassa, Florida. He began this process and oversaw it for a year, getting us going. So thanks for Troy. We also have online retired Lieutenant Mike Boone, who oversaw the process for a year up until his retirement. And then we have with us in the back here in person, Sean Hamlin. He's our current full-time auditor and assessor for the police department. And he's also a retired lieutenant from the police department. And he carried the ball over the finish line for us for this process. So a big round of applause for those 3, please. They did the work. So this is important to us. We're very proud of it. Just to give you an idea of where the Ogden Police Department's come to, and this accreditation is a big part of this. We were contacted by the International Association of Chiefs of Police spring of last year and asked to be featured in a film at the International Chiefs of Police Conference in New Orleans this year. Unfortunately, due to Hurricane Ida, that conference was canceled. So the film was made and it was shown online, but it wasn't shown in person. It will be shown in person next year at the Dallas IACP conference. It'll be shown right before what's typically the presidential address. So it was quite an honor. So I just want to show the video. Brandon's got it queued up for us, and then I won't take any more of your time. And it's great to see so many people in the audience here tonight. I know you're not here for us, but great to see so many familiar faces. Thank you.
Best laid plans, you know?
Tested.
Yeah. You just got to keep Brandon humble.
Yep.
Ogden City is a community of about 90,000 residents. It lies at the confluence of the Ogden and Weber Rivers in northern Utah. It's a gem of outdoor recreation and kind of small town personality mixed together. The Ogden's Police Department's vision is that of a group of innovative professionals committed not only to our excellence, but the excellence of the community as a whole. We're also committed in our mission statement to reducing crime and harnessing the power of the community to create an environment where everyone feels safe to exercise their constitutional rights.
The strategic plan impacted the department by improving the working conditions, and it did that because the strategic plan was briefed to and then approved by city management and leadership, which ensured that we got the resources we needed to make the plan work. And so it changed pay scale, it impacted working conditions, it changed and affected shift times, it improved the morale drastically within the organization, and it also caused us to meet regularly with various groups within the community and talk about how to meet their needs as well. Since we implemented the strategic plan, crime has been significantly reduced. Revenues have dramatically increased in the city, and the community has become heavily involved with our law enforcement efforts.
The Ogden Police Department has been committed to community outreach for years and years. We've had a full-time community outreach coordinator for more than 8 years. We're in our communities. We're with individuals who have investment and are stakeholders in Ogden City, and we want to hear them and we want to make them part of what their police department is.
It's critical to have a positive relationship with underrepresented communities so that we don't just want people to feel like they're safe, but we want people to actually be safe. And that relationship is a critical part of that safety. Ogden Police Department is open and welcoming with the community, and that can be seen by our town hall conversations on race, with our police officer coffee with the COP programs, and other opportunities to connect and serve in the community. When we can trust each other and recognize that we're working together to build a safer community that's more inclusive, everybody feels recognized, respected, and supported.
I attended an IACP conference in New Orleans in 2007, and at that conference, New York City was unfolding or presenting their real-time crime center. And when I looked at what they were presenting, I thought, we could do this on a smaller scale. We have the tools, we have the capability, we have the things that we need to do to make detective work a lot easier.
The Real-Time Crime Center is really a force multiplier on steroids for us. The analysts in the ATAC are always working in the background, whether it's an active call for service or supporting an investigation, a homicide, or anything that the administration needs. The ATAC is a regional asset for all the law enforcement agencies in the northern part of Utah. In a homicide that occurred last year, we took call detail records from the victim and the suspect and created a four-dimensional model which placed the suspect at the scene where the victim's remains were found. In November of last year, a 10-month-old female was kidnapped. Within 12 minutes of the initial call, we had a license plate reader hit on the suspect vehicle, which was provided to all of the officers involved in the search for that vehicle. The infant was recovered safely and unharmed, and the suspects were apprehended.
So the future of policing is changing rapidly. It's our job as police leaders and here in the Ogden Police Department to continue to be a leader in not only in technology, but in building relationships in our community so that members of our community feel like they are partners in law enforcement in their community. And we will continue to make those strides in the future.
What excites me about this department is how innovative we are. A lot of departments are still stuck in that antiquated, traditional model of policing, and we're not. We are always forward-thinking and looking at what is the next step. We cannot survive on yesterday's success. We always have to be forward-thinking to identify what's going to lead to tomorrow's success.
What excites me about the future for the city of Ogden is the continued growth. Businesses are coming. People are moving here. We're seeing growth that we haven't seen in a number of years. And it's diverse growth. It's across all income levels. It's across all ethnic cultures and levels. So it's very exciting to see this community come together, be successful, and draw strength from each other.
So what I see in Ogden is actually the national model for how everyone should be, which is inclusive, encouraging, and really committed to public safety and support.
Thank you, Chief Young. Next up, we have the approval of minutes. First up is the joint session of April
Chair
20. Sorry,
Did you want to get a picture?
I would love to get a picture.
Yeah.
First of many.
Yeah. Let's catch him before he leaves.
Yeah, don't go.
This is my window right here. Got into it. Okay. Appreciate it. Yeah, there we go. Council members, if I can't see you, vice versa. Very good. Okay. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate you.
Okay, I think that's a record. We went 22 minutes before I made my first mistake, so I'm getting better. Next up is the... We're not having them right now. Next up is the approval of minutes. We have the joint session of April 20th, 2021. Councilmember Heyer.
Chair Blair, I've reviewed those, found them to be accurate to the best of my recollection.
Thank you. Next up is the joint work session of April 27th, 2021. Councilmember Chaburka.
Yes, I've read those and they're accurate to my recollection.
Thank you. And next up, we have the regular meeting of April 27th, 2021, the work session of May 4th, 2021, the joint work session of May 11th, 2021, and the regular meeting of May 4th, 2021. Councilmember Stevens.
Yes, all those are correct, Chair, and I make a motion that we adopt the minutes that have been presented.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Councilmember Stevens to adopt the minutes and a second by Councilmember Hyer. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. Thank you. Next up, we have 2 items listed under common consent. First is the Ogden Trails Committee appointments. That would be the consideration of the appointment of Sarah Moore to the Ogden Trails Network Committee. I don't know if Sarah is here tonight. Okay, thank you. And the Ogden City Youth Council appointments. And we have, the city has put together a Ogden City Youth Council, and this is we get to appoint these young members to that. That council consists of Mercedes, and I'm sorry if I say any of your names wrong. I'm so sorry. Mercedes Randhan, Jada Sims, Kaihan Azimi, Clarissa Beltran, Tiffany Brown, Kate Pulley, William Broucher, Melanie Juarez, Lily Galbraith, Demiris Zarquino, Hannah Woodard, and Ellie Gomez, Thor Dorish, Isabel Felix, and Castle Stowell to the Ogden City Youth Council.
Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the common consent.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Councilmember Chaburka to approve the items listed under common consent and a second by Councilmember Hyer. Tonight, this will be a roll call vote.
Councilmember Chaburka.
Aye.
Councilmember Hyer.
Aye.
Councilmember Stevens.
Aye.
Vice Chair White.
Aye.
Chair Blair.
Aye, thank you. That passes. And if any of those members of the Ogden City Youth Council are here, we would love them to come forward, get to shake their hand and take a picture with them.
Chair Blair, while they're coming up, I was just going to say, this is a new program that we've started, and so just start shaking right here. And we're excited to have these young kids here, and Ross has done a great job with them.
This is exciting. Thanks so much. Thank you. Thanks for coming. Thanks for doing it. Thank you. How are you? Thank you. Thank you. Yep. Congratulations. Thanks for being here.
Let's go get a picture.
Now we're going to get a picture taken, okay?
Now you have to move over here and face that way. Oh, look back that way. Look at us.
Yeah.
You guys will be a little closer together, if you can like stagger. Are you in choir by chance? Is that stance where you're like, no? Okay. Never mind. All right, everybody look in here. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
Great. There are shirts for all of you, so they're just back over here and they'll get those shirts for you.
And Chair Blair, if Ross could maybe just say a couple words about the things they're doing so far.
Yeah.
Sorry, I caught him off guard.
You want me to grab?
Wow, I didn't prepare a speech. This is exciting. We've had a few meetings already with the Youth Council. This is a program that was instituted last year, but it didn't really take off because of COVID. So we tried to get it started going again at the beginning of this school year. We accepted applications, and these kids are awesome. You should read through their resumes. The things that they're doing right now, they're like light years beyond what I was doing in high school. They're super smart, involved in everything. Sometimes I have a hard time making time for the Youth Council because they're so busy doing other things, but we get the majority of them. We have some exciting things coming up. We recently went on a tour of the elections process over at the county building. That was a lot of fun. Our next meeting, we're going to be electing a chair and a vice chair and other officer positions. Hopefully do some service projects. They mentioned they want to do at least one service project a month, which is ambitious, but if they want to do it, I'll support them in it. It's going to be a fun year. Hopefully we can kind of get the ball rolling, build a good solid program, and keep this going for years to come. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Ross, where do they all come from? Like, what are the schools? And
Yeah, so they come from, I wish I had the report in front of me right now. I made a cool little graph of it if you want to look at the packet. They come from, I think it's 5 or 6 different schools in Ogden. We have Ben Lomond High School, Ogden High School, a couple of junior highs because 9th graders are also welcome. New Ames, and I know I'm going to leave some out, so I apologize.
St. Joe's.
St. Joe's, yeah, and Da Vinci Academy. So,
great.
yeah, it's a good mix, good group of kids.
Good.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ross.
Awesome.
And thanks to Janine. I know when I first got on the council, I had talked to Bill Cook about it, and I think Councilmember Stevenson
Yeah.
Stevenson
Brandon.
had tried this too, and it was quite a task, and it would gain momentum and then stop and then gain momentum. So thanks to Janine for getting this going again. I know I think when Councilmember Nadolski first came on too, he had asked about it also. So Janine took it, and thanks to you, Ross, for your passion for him and helping them out. So
No
this
problem.
is exciting.
Yeah, it'll be a fun year.
Yep.
Thanks.
Thank you. Okay. Next up, we have reports from the Planning Commission. First is the rezone at 1678 Kiesel Avenue.
He's doing double duty tonight.
Which one? Which rezone? Sorry.
The Kiesel. Okay. Chair, members of the council, this is a petition that had been filed to look at rezoning a piece of property at 1698 Kiesel Avenue, and the Planning Commission has reviewed this petition, is now forwarding the recommendation on to you. Maybe. That's right, okay. As I mentioned, this is a corner piece of property located on Kiesel and 17th Street. And the property, a single-family lot originally, it was rezoned several years ago to commercial as the Bott family looked to try to expand some of their parking for their business. However, once they actually rezoned it, one of the concerns was, and I'm jumping way ahead of slides now because I know you got time tonight. They realized after they rezoned it commercial that it could not accomplish all they wanted to have done in terms of creating a parking lot. It only provided 2 additional stalls, even though it had been a single-family home lot earlier on. And so after the time frame of having it zoned commercial and doing their, just way ahead now, doing ahead their improvements, they felt that it's appropriate to take it back to a single-family home. And in order to do that, they need to rezone the property. It is consistent with the Mountain View Community Plan in that it talks about this area being historic dwellings, keeping that single-family core. All along Kiesel Avenue, there are single-family homes, and the business of the Botts, a lot of their customer parking really just happens along the street, whether it be on 17th Street, because the front door is on the corner of Washington. And so there was some concern from the Planning Commission. One of the commissioners had concern about removing parking once you have it established for a commercial use. The other commissioners, however, felt that even though it's removing 2 parking stalls, they really aren't utilized. There's parking available for clients. And so the best use of the property would be to go back to residential. And so on a 7-to-1 vote, they're recommending that you approve rezoning the property to R16.
Greg, so did they pave it or asphalt it, or is it?
See if I had a picture. There. Well, that's a prior. Yeah, you can see the 2 parking stalls. So they landscaped it. You can see that one white car there.
Okay.
That is the entire lot, so all they could get, because of setbacks and everything else, was 2 parking stalls, and the rest of it's all landscaped. So
Okay,
there's very
that was-
little amount of
That,
pavement.
when I pictured a big giant
Yeah.
slab of concrete.
That's what
Okay.
they had hoped would happen too, but the setbacks, the size of the lot ended up just, that is all that could be done as far as the parking area.
Okay.
There was at one time a home on that.
There was a home on
property.
that prior to,
Yeah.
prior to this use.
Okay.
And Commissioners Southwick, I believe it was, or Safeston,
Safeston, yes.
just thought once you have the parking in a commercial area, you don't want to lose
Right.
it. That was, okay,
Right.
nothing more than that.
But if you take a look at that picture, and if you're familiar with the business, the entrance, again, is on Washington Boulevard. And you see where that stall is. That's all the way
Yeah.
back and around. It really is not convenient.
Okay. Any questions?
Are the
Greg.
petitioners here?
Yeah, are there petitioners here? Would they like to speak?
No worries, I'm just curious.
Yeah,
Sometimes we forget.
Greg, is it their intention to build a home there, or are they just gonna?
They
sell it
talked
for-
about being able to build a home there.
Okay. You don't really know exactly what their
No,
future plan is, though?
no.
Okay,
But it is a lot that it could have a home. It had a home on it before.
sure.
And, with, again, trying to find places to build, this is a very logical location.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I think that's it. Thank you.
Input?
Yep, so we will receive public input on this item. So if you would like to speak to the rezone at 1678 Keysel Avenue, you now have that opportunity.
Chair, I'm not seeing anybody come up.
I was waiting to see if Brandon had anybody online.
The what?
Is there anybody online? That was my question.
Oh. Okay.
Looks like everybody's here. I think the whole town's here.
Yeah.
There's 24 people online.
So if I might make a motion then.
Yeah, please.
Concerning ordinance 2021-54, I would make a motion that we adopt that ordinance.
I second it.
Thank you. We have a motion by Councilmember Heyer to adopt proposed ordinance 2021-54 and a second by Councilmember Chaburka. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Heyer,
Aye.
Councilmember Stevens,
Aye.
Councilmember Chaburka,
Aye.
Vice Chair White,
Aye.
Chair Blair.
Aye, that passes. Thank you. Next up is the rezone at 550 East, 900 North. We have Greg again.
Okay. This is another petition that the Planning Commission has reviewed, is now forwarding their recommendation on to you. In this regards, we'll get there again. This regards a piece of property located on 900 North that had been a church. The church had been vandalized and burned, and the owner has sold the property. The buyer, one of the conditions of acquiring the property is that the church building has to be torn down. And so that leaves this 2.8 acre site, which is presently zoned R16, with the question of what do you develop here once this building is removed. And so the owner petitioned the city to rezone the property from R16, which is single family, to R3, which would allow multiple family development to occur. Again, the picture earlier on of the building. We looked and discussed in a work session with the council options. One of those was, can you develop a single-family subdivision in the R16? And that is a possibility. You could get anywhere between 5 to 8 lots under the present zoning regulations without rezoning. And one of the things we had talked about earlier on was the ability to reuse the building, but as we found out, That is not a condition of the sale, that the building does have to be torn down, so it's not an ability to reuse to something different. It is developing a clean site. Early on in the discussions, there was a question about looking at 40 townhomes being built. The discussion that took place with the R3 zoning was that it would not be the only use that could be allowed, and other uses such as a 59-unit apartment building could be placed on the property if it's zoned R3, assisted living, nursing homes, and that was a real concern about the variety of uses that could be placed on the property if it were rezoned R3, and that was a concern of the neighbors in the area. We had also discussed the general plan and its standards regarding rezoning and looking at creating edges between different types of development, the zoning reflecting the prevailing character of the area, and trying to have similar zones on streets, on local streets. Also is an area in transition, and that could be a consideration regarding rezoning. And how does development of this property, how would it relate to the context of the rest of the neighborhood? One of the things that the Planning Commission had considered was the fact that two sides of the property were already zoned R3, a townhome development that is to the south, and also assisted care facility to the west, and there's a mobile home park to the north. And the question the commission discussed was, are these areas in transition with two sides of the property being zoned R3? Would it be consistent in terms of transitioning from one use to another to also rezone this property R3? Again, with that prevailing character, the Planning Commission, as they looked at this, felt that buffering that edge would be determined by the back lots of Jefferson, and that an R3 boundary would seem appropriate. And as that is a transition from R4, which is further to the west, to R3, and then R16 along Jefferson. So they recommend 6.0 to rezone this. Now, when we presented this to you, both in a work session and a meeting, one of the concerns that came up was some language that is in the Mount Lewis Community Plan, and that had not been discussed in the Planning Commission meeting. And that language was that residential development east of Adams should be single-family dwelling unit variety, and the rest of that paragraph talked about the proposed zoning designations are consistent with the already established housing types in the area. And again, some of that question is, well, if one of the housing types is townhomes and single-family to Adams, but Adams doesn't go through. There's some discussion about that, but the language was still there of that single family, and that had not been discussed with the Planning Commission. We looked at the Mount Lewis community and its overall makeup. 71% of the development in Mount Lewis are single family detached homes. Mobile homes making up the next largest land use. Most of the multiple family that have been developed have occurred over the past 20 years. There's only been one project in the last 2 years, but a lot of other multifamily had developed earlier on in this community. And that was a concern. This shows you some of those different densities that are around that general area. Some multiple families, 15 units, 13 units an acre, 12 units immediately to the south, where the residential single family is around 5.8 units an acre. That was a concern. Also, some of the neighborhood concerns that were voiced dealt again with the density of the project. The traffic and circulation pattern was a key concern expressed by the neighborhood. 900 North is a 66-foot wide right-of-way, so it's meant to be kind of a collector street. And even though with its parking on the sides of the street, one of the concerns the neighborhood had is that it has a congested feel to it. But it is designed to be able to handle the traffic that is generated, as both it and Jefferson are 66-foot wide right-of-ways, where the other streets are local at 60 foot. Another concern of the neighborhood is the fact that if you look at those green dots, those are where semaphores exist. 2 on Washington, 1 on Monroe. But a lot of the neighborhood has to exit and enter off of the local streets that have no semaphore onto Washington Boulevard, and that does create some concerns, especially if anything is trying to go south out of the neighborhood on Washington. Trying to cross Washington Boulevard without a semaphore is very risky. To go out of the way, you've got to go up to Monroe and around, which adds time to commutes, which people are concerned about. Other concerns the neighborhood brought up is potential height of buildings. In a specific design, car lights coming in and shining into the townhomes that already exist. An earlier concept showed a dog park being the boundary between the proposed development and existing development. Again, what R3 would allow, the desire of the community to have single-family homes, and also concern of parking on the street. Those are all issues that the neighborhood has brought up as concerns, and which both were expressed in the earlier meeting that the council held, and more specifically in the town meeting that Councilman Heyer talked about at the school, Lincoln School. These were items of their concerns that they really wanted to try to see how could that be resolved.
Greg?
Yes.
I have just two questions about the concerns.
Uh-huh.
What is the building height requirement for the?
So in the R3 zone, there is no building height limit.
Okay.
So that is why that concern.
R1 is there?
R1 is 35 feet.
35 feet, okay. And then I went out there and I talked to just a few people, and they did bring up the traffic concerns.
Uh-huh.
And I'm just trying to figure out where they're coming from or we're going to. Because they kept saying that, yes, there is traffic concerns. A lot more, it seemed like it was more during
Afternoon.
yeah, early at 8 o'clock and coming home at 4, in between 4 and 5. Is it just?
If you look at the layout of the community, there are not real quick destination routes to get in and out. There's only 3 or 4 roads that connect onto Washington, and of those, only 2 have semaphores. UDOT will not consider any additional traffic lights because they look at Washington and the spacing of lights. So that leaves these people, as they're trying to head into town, either going a longer distance around to take Monroe or Harrison, rather than trying to turn out onto Washington, which, again, that's a quicker route, but it's also a more dangerous route because of the traffic speeds on Washington. And that lack of a typical grid really then forces people to certain streets. If you look at the mobile home above, you can see there's 3 arrows there. Those are the entry and exit points of that mobile home. It can only enter onto 9 or exit onto 900 North. And so that, again, you have all that area. They can't go different directions like a typical grid street would do. So those things add to that feeling of congestion.
Do we know what the traffic counts are on 900 North?
We don't,
Okay.
but given the size of the street, generally it can handle somewhere between 7,000 to 9,000 trips per day. And I know it's far less than that.
Okay.
Are there any plans to put a light on 900?
Again, UDOT would not allow a light.
What about Monroe?
Monroe, we do have the light at North Street.
Yeah.
I think if future warrants it, but that will be when Monroe is connected to North Ogden. Maybe 1100 North in Monroe may have a signal, but as it dead ends now before North Ogden, it wouldn't justify a signal there either.
So it has to go through as a connector road then.
Correct. So after that meeting, a couple things were discussed with the neighborhood and with the developer. The developer has come back with this proposed layout, trying to address the concerns that came out of that neighborhood meeting. They've revised the development concept and are looking to look at a maximum of 32 units rather than the 40. Also stated they would limit themselves to a 2-story maximum height, which would be typical of a single-family neighborhood. If you see the design here, they've provided guest parking in the development, so it's not just left to the street. And they've also tried to address the way people enter this project so that the lights of the cars are not into the townhomes to the south, and have created that central green space area. One of the suggestions was to take all these revisions that have been proposed now by the developer and that came out of that town meeting, and to put them in a conditional overlay, so that rezoning the property to R3 with a conditional overlay would set these limits and not open up to all the aspects of what an R3 zone would allow. And so these would be some of the key criteria of a conditional overlay if you feel appropriate to look at rezoning the property. And again, the purpose tonight is to get the public input on that. But these are the things that have transpired since our last council meeting, working with the neighborhood, working with the developer on some possible other solutions to this petition.
Greg, I know we have this drawing here, and I'm kind of looking at the size, the footprint of each unit compared to the footprint of the duplexes that are to the south of it, and they look significantly smaller. Has the petitioner given you any kind of an idea what size units these are going to be?
I know at the meeting they talked somewhere, if I remember, around 1,400 square feet. I think Mr. Diamond is here, so we can address that.
He is here.
Yeah, I think, well, that's what I would like him to address when he speaks.
Yeah.
You know, how they compare with those. I've been in those townhomes that are on the south, and they aren't big. They're not roomy.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're going to be half again smaller, which is what it appears that they would be, that's going to make them really hard to live in. So, just saying.
Are they 2-bedroom or one?
We can ask the
Yeah, we'll ask
developer.
Mr. Diamond.
Okay. Are there 3?
Any other questions for me?
No.
Not yet.
Okay.
No.
I think maybe while you're there, I think it might be appropriate if you were to talk a little bit about the conditional overlay, what can be limited and what can't.
Thank you.
So the conditional overlay is the concept saying, if it were not for this specific design, you would not rezone it to R3. So even though R3 would allow a lot of variety, having the conditional overlay would tie it down to a specific land use type, in this case, the townhomes, setting, instead of the numbers of overall density that the R3 allows, setting here is the specific maximum would allow if in doing this rezoning. Also setting, even though the height is this, you're setting limits that we won't consider a project if it is taller than the 2 stories. And adding some other things, for example, guest parking was one of those key items. There's not a requirement in the group dwelling ordinance to have guest parking, but that was a concern of the neighborhood of trying to get parking off the street. So that would be another reason of things you could add. So what you're adding are things that narrow down the what the R3 would allow to see things that you feel comfortable with if you're looking at rezoning the property, that if it develops this way, it would be appropriate. Now, it doesn't exempt the general review process of a group dwelling and the other design standards of group dwelling unless you want them to be more specific. And in this case, those are some of those standards.
Can a CO dictate building materials and quality of the units in other ways?
Well, it can dictate the exterior building materials. The group dwelling also sets some of those standards. When you say the quality of the building, I guess that's hard to quantify. What is the quality?
Yeah, that is hard to quantify. I'm not saying granite countertops or something like that. That's not what I'm kind of getting at. I'm just getting at something that, you're the planner.
So some of the things the group dwelling ordinance puts in is, again, types of exterior materials, types of amenity space, location of those amenity spaces and size of those amenity spaces. One thing that, of course, was a concern of is the location of a dog park, and in this drawing, the dog park is not between the 2 projects. So those are some general things of amenities, density.
Going on
height.
that, Greg. So it sounds like there are some things, building materials and stuff that we can do, sounds like to the outside, the exterior, but
Correct.
nothing on the interior. Is
Correct.
that safe to say?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Sorry about this, Greg, but could you review the parking again? How many parking stalls per unit, and how many are there one guest per unit in parking? Could you just review
So
that
in the
briefly?
zoning ordinances, we require 2 stalls per unit. And in this illustration, each unit would have a 2-car garage.
Okay.
And then in addition to that, there is not a zoning requirement as far as guest parking, but this is providing, if you see that bay of guest parking as you enter into the project. So that would be off-street, and I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 12 stalls there.
B12, okay.
Another question. I'm just learning from, I've tried to learn from our SAD experience in the past. And we approved a development years ago with garages that were way too small and way too close to the adjoining properties.
Right.
I assume our ordinance has changed since then to allow more frontage in front of the garage. But is our garage size governed by ordinance, or do we need to state that here?
In the group dwelling, the backup areas are now governed by ordinance, so they are wider than the project you're referring
Right.
to. But the unit garage size is not dictated. Typical 2-car garage, 20 by 24.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, and
But
that
that's
would
not a
probably
standard.
work, but, you know, the other one we did, if you had a full-size something, it wasn't going in that garage.
Uh-huh.
So,
Yeah.
and that would be a problem for development. That's why I said, if our ordinance governs it, great. If not, then we
That could
probably,
be something
something to look at. Okay.
Will they be individually parceled?
Right now, my understanding from the developer is that he plans to retain the entire project.
So are these rentals or sales?
There'd be rentals at this point. And again, I'll let him answer.
All of them are rentals?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else?
I'll wait for questions.
Great. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. We do have the petitioner here, Mr. Diamond, if you'd like to come forward and speak.
You've already got a lot of questions we've already asked you. I hope you've taken notes.
So yes, so we hopefully, first I want to thank you for your time, and I thank the community for their efforts too. This has been a different process, and I'm sure you guys know you probably don't always have community meetings with developers, and we met off-site and met with a bunch of the neighbors, and we really appreciated their input. We want to have a nice project. To do it as a single-family home project, it doesn't really work well for us. We could do that. We could take our quick money and run, but we wanted to keep this project nice, build a townhome style project. That's why we absolutely want the conditional overlay type, so that it only can be a townhome project. We will have the restricted 35-foot maximum in there. Like Mr. Montgomery's talked about, the current group dwelling already has conditions in place for the ground floors has to be 100% brick, stucco, stone. We have no problem with those type of things. We've taken a lot of the recommendations from the community. We scaled it down by 20%. We put some additional parking. In fact, we met for an hour here before today's meeting and tried to pick apart that current map, and we think there's additional space. You can see the square footages there at the bottom where there's, the zoning would require 49,000 square foot of open space, and we've got 63,000. So we actually have room. I think we can put another 8 to 10 parking stalls in there in the final design that gives some additional guest parking areas. And so we can continue to address some of those. We can continue to play with the landscaping, which will be all part of the working through the Planning Commission and the color schemes. So we think we've addressed a lot of the neighborhood's concern. I can't do anything about the traffic patterns and the congestion and that kind of stuff, but we've tried to listen to that. We're not required to have a dog park, and that was some of the concerns from the neighbors, so we can remove the dog park, and maybe we'll use the regional holding pond over there and make that the neighborhood dog park, but no. But anyway, there's some concern about the lighting that the neighborhood has put out, and so we want to make sure, working with the Planning Commission, that lighting is addressed and that it doesn't shine into the neighbors. Directional lighting right down. We like to have have some lighting for security purposes. I'm trying to think what else we hadn't talked about in working with them.
Sorry, the size of the.
They will be, the final drawings haven't been done yet because we had to get through the zoning first and an overlay to determine the number of units. They're probably going to be 1,400 square foot, somewhere in that. There will be 2 and 3 bedrooms. There won't be 1 bedrooms. What was your other questions? They're similar in size to the other ones. Those are fourplexes that border on that. They're not duplexes. They're actually fourplexes. So if you know, my buildings are 5plexes, and so if you were to kind of take the dimensions, those 5plexes are a whole lot different size than their 4plexes. And our density per acre, we're actually less than the density per acres that development has. So I think it fits well. I think if way back when that R3 zone was done for that other project and for the assisted living facility, that the only reason the planners at that time didn't continue it along the backyard is because there was a church there. And the church can be in any zone. And so rather than ask the church to rezone them, they just cut out around it. So I actually think that the way it's zoned now, having just that little church portion as the 1/6 is an error from a planning standpoint. But that's neither here nor there. That's not what we're to talk about. But anyway, this is kind of what we've come up with that we think would be workable for them, and tried to address as many of the concerns that the community had and the councils had. The community plan, where it states that it should be everything east of Adams should be residential type units. Well, a townhome is a single family residence. It's just attached. And so I think it still meets that spirit of that community plan. The Planning Commission didn't just, they didn't talk about it, but they didn't just run over the top of that community plan. That plan was built back in 2014. I don't think it's been addressed since. I think there's some things in that plan that the community asked for that maybe haven't been done yet. They've had some concerns about the condition of their roads and their sidewalks, and they still do, and rightly so. But anyway, any questions for us?
Chair, I have a question.
Yes, please.
I'm just curious, do you have a sense for how much the rent might cost on each of the units, around about?
So my guess is that it's going to be somewhere between $1,000 to $1,300.
Nice.
That's what the going things is. I mean, I have other rental projects in town. They're different style projects. The stuff out by the fairgrounds is a very high-end development. They're $1,500, $1,600. My stuff at 2nd Street, surprisingly, the rents are climbing in this town.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys have seen more than I have all of the different apartment projects that have been built and that are coming online. But from what I see, I'm also a banker by profession, and I finance a lot of them. And most all of them are 100% full, and they just keep raising the rents.
No, that sounds very reasonable for a 2 or 3 bedroom house. That's your own house. Yeah.
Yep.
I think it sounds good.
Mr. Diamond, could you address the materials on the inside? What type of materials are you going to use?
So they will have, surprisingly, granite is not that expensive anymore. When you do a project like this, you can design the kitchen countertops and the bathroom countertops to be done out of granite or culture marble. And I hate to say it, but it's all custom made out of China, and it comes on a slow boat. And that'll be our biggest challenges, is getting it out of the port of LA when it finally gets here. But these days, mass buying 32 kitchen countertops out of granite and bringing it out of China is just as cheap as doing Formica anymore. So they'll have nicer stuff. The appliances and the cabinets, there's not a whole lot of difference between going with the low-end, low-grade stuff versus just a regular black or stainless steel. So we want them to be nice. We talked about in the pre-meeting, a lot of the apartments used to be built with carpet, and with the allowing pets, they tend to wear heavily on the carpets, and you're always replacing them. And so rather than dinging your residents to replace the carpets because their pets have ruined them, most of the apartments are going with the LVP flooring, and then letting the residents bring in rugs so that they're not strapped with a $2,500 carpet bill when they moved out. So they probably will have the LVPs in it instead of carpet, at least on the main floor.
Chair, I have one more question. The buffer area around, is that a chain link fence, or is that metal frame?
So there is currently a chain link fence all the way on the three sides that has the privacy slats in it. That's been there. I think the church put that in when.
I'm sure they did.
I'm sure, but it's been there from day one. And so some of it is in very good shape. There are some concerns that needs to be repaired. Some of the landscaping on the adjoining property to the south is damaging that fence. The roots and stuff are lifting it up and whatnot. So, we'll be working with the planning department, I'm sure, and coming up with a plan to make sure the fence is intact if it has to be changed or upgraded, and we'll be doing some of that. There was a gate in between the property and the assisted living facility that I have since fenced in, but it doesn't have the slats in it yet.
Okay.
So we're waiting to see what we end up with that, but it does have a privacy fence all the way around it.
Did you address the garage depth?
So like I say, the final drawings have not been done. They will be, you're not going to fit your double cab truck in there. I mean, they just don't work to build them that big. So, I drive a double cab truck and it barely fits in my garage at home. But they're designed for the two cars.
You can get something better than a smart car in there, can't you?
You can get something better than a smart car, yes.
Okay.
You can fit your SUV in there, but you're not going to fit your 1-ton diesel double cab.
I get there are some vehicles that don't go in a garage, but some cars that should go in a garage ought to be able to go in a garage.
Right. So they'll be the standard depth. They'll be the 18 to 20 foot wide, and then I can't remember what the standard depth is on them, but we have that hasn't been done. There's plenty of room to work with that with the Planning Commission because of how much by scaling the project down by 20%, we have some green space to play with. And so the length of those buildings can be played with a little bit, their depth of them, if that's a concern to the planning department. The width between them can be adjusted, but the density is what we're hoping to do as an overlay tonight so that it's set that it can only be a townhome project. It can only be 35 feet tall, it can only be 32 units. And then we'll work with the planning department on all of the finished materials and the designs and the dimensions and make sure it fits with all of those ordinances.
I'm going to ask the people who speak at, public input on this, so I thought I'll ask you the same question. Did you come to a consensus with the neighbors?
So I think for the most part we have. We're never going to get 100% consensus. There's still, I'm sure, some out there would just as soon have it be a park. Well, it's not going to be a park. There's someone that would prefer if you mailed 15 units or 20 units, and so we're not going to get all. I think there's at least 30 people that are concerned that have been coming regularly to the meetings and are on the email list. And for the most part, I mean, I don't want to speak for all of them, but I think they like this plan much better than when we presented it at 40. Asking a developer to scale it back 20% is a pretty big ask, and so that's what we've done. I can't get the numbers to work very well to scale it back any further. Scaling it down to 20%, we were able to save some infrastructure costs in amount of square footage of roads and asphalts, and so there's some makeup savings there. But still, I think my partner did the math on it, and over a 20-year period, just scaling it down, those 8 units is about a $2.9 million cut in value to the developer. So it's a big ask to go any further down. Mm-hmm.
So where are the dumpsters located there, or are you having that on the premises?
So we talked about that in the meeting beforehand. The architect forgot to draw them on, but it will probably be at the end of that of the driveway that points towards the assisted living facility. Over here, where that big tree is. That tree will move, and there'll be a dumpster box there.
Okay. And when would you make the decision whether you want to use that extra space for guest parking?
So we'll work with if the zoning goes through, then we'll work with the architect and with planning. And you can see right there at the top of those the 2 buildings that are on the outside edge. There's that open space and the 2 big trees and 2 little trees. Mm-hmm. I think you can put at least three parking stalls in both of those pads and not violate the open space issues. And so I have no problem driving those in there. That's a no-brainer. And then we also think on the bottom of the 2 legs where you've got the turnaround leg, you can mirror that the other directions and put 2 more stalls there. So there's very easily, can add 6 to 10 parking stalls. So there'll be plenty. And that would be more guest parking stalls, I would bet, and I can't hold me to it, but I bet that'd be more guest parking stalls than any other project you got in the city. I don't have that many guest parking stalls in my 145 unit project. Any
other
more questions for me?
Nope. Thanks so much for
you.
this and for all you did with the community,
Thank you.
working with them. Okay.
Hey, Chair, before we move on, I can appreciate the signs, but you're blocking the aisle. So if you want the signs up, maybe either move back to the back or get them out of this aisle so that people can get in and out of there will be comment, including the one that's kind of hanging over the edge. I guess that's what I'm. Thank you.
Chair, also, could I say a thing or two about this petition first before we take public input? I was impressed that the citizens undertook their own volition to have this community meeting. And I haven't talked to very many of you since that time. And so as this council, I'm only going to speak for myself, but I want to know, just like I asked the developer, did you guys come to a consensus? And do we have something we can move forward up and take this decision kind of away from the council? That's kind of what I think is in my mind, at least. Maybe my council colleagues feel the same way. Also, just a fair warning that there are 5 of us here tonight. There needs to be 4 votes for anything to pass. And, you know, when there's only 5, it's harder to get 4. So we may be postponing this decision to another time. So just don't freak out if that happens. So that's just because we are missing a couple of council members tonight. But with that, I'm ready to go forward.
Okay. So we will now accept public input on the rezone at 550 East 900 North. If you'd like to speak on this issue, here's your opportunity.
Also, just to save time, those of you who do want to speak, kind of queue up somehow, and so that we're not waiting a lot of time for people to kind of come and go.
My name is Lisa Took, and I live at 621 East 925 North. And I'll try and make this as condensed as possible. While I do really appreciate the developer scaling it down to 32, 32 is still too much. In the community meeting that we had, and I wish some of those people were here tonight, but the consensus, most of the people said no, 20, and then he's saying something about his price point, which there's no gentle way to say it, but we're not concerned about that. We're not concerned about your price point. We're concerned about our quality of life, the traffic that it'll put to that, and how you mitigate the traffic going onto that street is not putting more people. So, we had discussed that basically at the end of the thing, we were like, okay, maybe 28. And he's like, okay, 28 to 32. And we're like, no, 28. 28 is our limit. But I do appreciate that he is scaling down, is listening, and I hope that the council does the same and listens to the people that put our votes in for you to represent our voices. So, in the future, if the council could make it some way, somehow more projected out to the community that, hey, this project is going on, because in the beginning, only 3 people 350 feet around the church were supposed to be notified, like legally. I don't know all the ins and outs about it, but if there could be some way to have it be more broadcasted so it doesn't take up your guys' time tabling it time after time after time, I think that would make things in the future go more smoothly. But long story short, 32 units is just too many. But thank you for your time.
My name is Tara Rodriguez, and I live at 587 East, 825 North in the townhomes that are directly south of the project. And first of all, I'd like to thank the developer. He did take our concerns. He was very patient with us at our meeting that we had off-site, listening to all the concerns. I think that with a conditional overlay, we can make a lot of the issues be a lot better than what they are as we're seeing right now. As well as I think if we can get the city council or whoever we need to have be involved in some traffic studies in that general area. So we have 1100 North, 900 North, and 800 North that are very busy roads. Children are walking to school, so adding this extra traffic that is on the way to a school zone area. So I think that that would be very helpful. I know that is nothing the developer can handle, but if the city council would help us work on that, we would appreciate that. As well as the parking issues that there are on 900 North. Right now cars are parked on that road all the time, and that is a huge issue with the bend in the road. People coming in and out, and now we're going to add more vehicles to that road. So if there's something we can look at about possibly having that road be no on-street parking, I think there's a lot of things that the city council can do, as well as what the developer's done and with what the community input has done to make this a better project for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tara. Really, if you plan to speak, please kind of stand up and get ready to come up.
My name's Jim Wild. I'm at 733 East, 1000 North. I just have some financial questions. One is, how will putting in these units affect the rest of the neighborhood? Will that affect our taxes? Will they go up? Will the values of the houses go down? You know, I haven't heard anybody address this situation. Also, you know, just in my mind's eye, I can envision the plan on the pictures, and it still seems like about 28 houses is awful a lot squeezed together. And if they're 400 square feet, basically, even if you go up to a second level, that's only about 400 to 600 more. And that's a lot smaller, almost, well, a little bit more than half of what some of those houses in that area are in square footage. Also, did the developer consider the land that he's building on? I know that area around the church and around Viking Villa, even up towards Jefferson, just a half a block east, it's a high water table. The water level is very high. My parents used to own the property at 610 East 900 North, and every year, particularly during the springtime, they'd get a lot of water in the crawl space where they would have to put in a sump pump and situations like that. So I'm just asking, I just want to know if the developer is going to just build on slabs, on solid ground, and that, or is he planning on putting in some basement space or even a crawl space, and how would that affect the situation? Also, concern I have is the water and other resources that we have. Do we have the facilities to add more burden on that area that we live in concerning water usage and electrical usage? Thank you.
Thank you.
I just wanted to come back and just point a clarification there. The units are 1,400 square feet, not 400.
Yeah.
So they'll actually be bigger than most of those houses in that neighborhood. And then for the density question, that the 32 units that we're proposing on the drawing now is actually less units per acre than the townhome project directly behind us. They're 12 point something and we're only 11.4. So, you know, it's actually less dense even at that. Now, I get the concern of the traffic and whatnot, but anyway, those are just two clarifications I wanted to make.
Thank you. I don't see any online either.
I know they're here. I see them.
Yeah. Oh. Okay, we have one comment joining us online. Go ahead, Sebastian Benitez. This is your opportunity.
Oh, thank you so much. This is Sebastian Benitez, and I like to participate again about this project. And one of my son lives there in that neighborhood, and I like to make the comment about the project is not done in the point they don't have exactly what kind material, they don't have exactly what kind parking spot or gas spot, they don't have a specific. I think this project is getting worse and worse, and we need to respect the neighborhood. We need to respect the neighbor living there for many, many years. I agree we have to build more units, more houses for people are coming. Like my son, when he bought the property of the house there around 3 years ago. Anyway, I propose to postpone this situation. And I like to in public propose to the developer, I can buy the property and build a assisted living house there. That is the point why we can fix the problem with the neighbors and the neighborhood, the traffic. We can keep the building of the church, and then some architect can design how to keep this building. And in other words, we have to respect the neighborhood. And you guys, I will tell one more time, you guys represent the votes of the neighbors. And they vote for you and to support to them. And this is the time to show how much you support the neighborhood or the people vote for you, you know. And I like to congratulate all you guys who win this election, the past election. And I am happy to participate there. And I wanna say thank you. Thank you so much for giving the opportunity to talk. My public proposal is for the developer. I can buy the property and I can build there with assisted living like it's supposed to be. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Aline Evans, and I live at 618 and 50 North in the neighborhood. And I just want to thank the developer, all the other neighbors who have participated so well with coming together to be able to have a voice. I know my experience of working with the city, the community doesn't get involved very often. The community's asleep, and I appreciate our neighborhood for being able to wake up and to participate, to be paying attention to the community plan that's been adopted, and we can continue to look over that and maybe other improvements that need to be done in the neighborhood. I appreciate Mr. Diamond being so workable and being able to come to our meetings, came to the earlier meeting today so that we can continue to talk about it, trying to make it be a win-win situation. And I know from my previous employment here at Ogden City, to be really candid, is townhomes and HOAs take care of themselves. Single-family dwellings are a code enforcement problem. And I know that drill. And I know that we have a lot of nice townhomes. And yeah, if you have a big car, a big truck, oh yeah, it doesn't go in a garage in a townhome. So you pay attention to where you want to live, what you want to do. But I think Mr. Diamond is very interested in building a good thing for our neighborhood, a good product. I know that water concerns and all that kind of thing is a concern everywhere. And being realistic with those things are important. And I think he's taking that into account. We all need to be conservative on our own points too, in our own yards, the way we use our water in our own homes. We all need to be conscious of what we're doing. But I do appreciate what the city council administration does in the city and for our community. We have a great town. Ogden City is awesome. And I appreciate being able to have this kind of a situation. I think moving forward, I don't know how your vote thing's going to turn out. We do have a consensus that I feel that not 100% at peace about what's going on with 32 units and townhomes, but this is so square one. And Mr. Diamond knows that there's a lot that needs to be discussed in the Planning Commission. There's a whole lot to do in development. He's got to handle the demolition of the church. It's got asbestos in it. It's going to be expensive. There's a whole lot of this process that we haven't even addressed, and it's a long time thing. And so we'll continue to work together and continue to be awake in the Mount Lewis community. And thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Elaine.
I don't see anyone else. Unless, nope.
Seeing no movement, I,
We'll have to close it.
So,
no, you don't have
It's
to
not a
close it.
public hearing.
Not hearing.
Yeah.
Chair, may I make a comment?
Please.
I just want to say how much I appreciate the community members for being engaged with the developer, Mr. Diamond, and going through that process, and Councilmember Heyer for getting involved as well. I mean, this is what we like to see is, and this situation doesn't always happen if the zoning is already just what it is and what the developer wants to do. So I do appreciate this process of having the community input, et cetera, and I'm glad that they've all come to some consensus.
I've got to say that too. I was really impressed that this was not free to them either. They had to raise some money to print signs to notice this thing and to rent the time at the school, and they did that on their own expense to do that. I would suggest that we learn from this as a council, and when we have some of these things where that potentially will be, I don't want to use the word contentious because I don't know if this was contentious per se, but it was certainly, there was different points of view. The developer actually foot the cost of these things and try and come to some consensus beforehand so that I certainly think that gives better goodwill to the public, and it has, I don't think it's ever failed whenever it's happened in the past. Certain developers just volunteer to do that. Maybe we ought to put a little more pressure on the developers to host those kind of meetings.
It would certainly save them some time.
Absolutely.
In the long run. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's to their advantage to do so.
Chair, I do have a couple of questions. Mainly Mr. Diamond could answer it, but there was a question bringing up the high water table. Are these on solid ground, or what type of foundation would the units be built on?
I think he's already stated that they're going to be on slab.
Mhm.
They'll be
Slab.
By the same kind of other.
It's no
houses around
basement
there.
then?
Yeah, no basements. Unless you like a spring in your basement.
Well, I just wondered.
The church has tunnels all underneath it. I've been crawling them. There's no water in it. And all of the storm water that's been on that whole parking lot is just drained into 4-inch perforated pipe and gravel beds. It doesn't tie into a storm drain system, and it's never flooded. It's handled every bit of water that's ever been put on it.
So who stands the cost of demolition in this?
Me.
You do, okay.
You have some reimbursement from the church, don't you?
Nope. Not a bit. Just demo scheduled to start on about the 23rd of this month.
Okay. Um, this you know, I've been these conversations with others, and I don't think the neighbors, though they would like to see single family homes, they don't have high hopes that it's going to be a quality thing. And you know, if that could be required, which it cannot, because it's already zoned R16, and we're not going to change it at this point to make it more restrictive. But I think that they generally, at least that's my sense, is that they think, okay, we are okay to allow more density. And so, but that's not what's on the agenda for tonight. I think what we can do tonight is extend this with the direction that a ordinance be drafted, a conditional overlay ordinance can be drafted that can meet some of these needs. And I'm going to tell you what I heard, and you tell me if you think it's right. You know, 35-foot height limitation, which I think would already be in place, or it wouldn't be in place, but we'd need to add that. The 100% brick, stucco, or stone exterior to the buildings. The development should have 8 to 10 guest parking stalls. The unit should be 1,400 feet minimum, 2 to 3 bedroom units. And those are really the main things that I heard. I'm happy that the developer figured out a way to do some granite countertops for, you know, on the cheap. I wish I'd have figured out how to do that when I did my house. It wasn't on the cheap with my house, so. But anyway, did anybody hear anything else?
You want to limit the units?
I do want to limit the units. You know, at the community meeting, I heard 20 from the community. I heard 28 to 32 from the developer. He came back with 32. I wonder if we could just kind of split that a little bit and say, how many units, how many buildings were there on the property? Greg, do you remember the it seemed like there was 32 divided by 5, wasn't there? Why we just go to 28? I think 28 would be a pretty good compromise. That would be a little in the developer's favor, but that's.
It wouldn't be in the development.
Yeah, it would not be in his favor at
Well,
all.
I mean, if it would be in his favor from splitting it in the middle, is what I'm saying, from 32 to 20.
The question I have,
I think-
does it pencil at 28?
Yeah, I think if we're going to do a conditional overlay, I think we leave it at 32 and leave it, that's the maximum number. If he makes it less than that, then great, but I don't think.
I don't think it will.
Yeah, I don't either, but.
Yeah.
From what I heard tonight, I didn't hear a resounding.
Nor did
it's
I,
way too
and
many.
that's why I was a little disappointed at citizens that you kind of left us hanging here, and so. But okay, I could go with 32 because I didn't hear the outcry either.
Exactly.
So, so are we good with that? If
I just had
so-
one question. I know, and I'm just making sure I heard it correctly. The brick stucco, is it the whole building? Is it a certain height?
Well, he said 100%. That was his term.
Okay, that's.
Ground floor, the ordinance says 100%.
Okay.
That's what I thought.
All
That's
right.
what I thought I heard was on ground floor.
Okay. Yep. Okay.
Thank you.
Greg, could you go through the process? We go through the zoning tonight, and when if, for example, let's say it is approved, what other steps does the developer has to go through?
So the steps after a zone change would be to come to the planning commission with a group dwelling, which is what this proposal is because it's more than one building on a lot. The planning commission would review it as a preliminary approval, set the conditions, see if it meets the overlay conditions as well as the zoning conditions, and then have him come back then with a final to again have that approved. So there would be a two-step design process, preliminary and final, and would notify again the neighbors to make sure that any screening, those type of things are handled for lights, that type of thing. So yeah, preliminary and a final approval would both go to the Planning Commission.
Okay. So the CO would be covered by the Planning Commission then?
The conditional overlay would be one of the steps the commission looks at and say, okay, in addition to the group dwelling ordinance, are they meeting the requirements of the conditional overlay?
So what Councilmember Heyer mentioned, would that be part of that conditional overlay?
Well, if the motion is to develop a conditional overlay, we'd include those in there for you then to consider
Okay.
to vote on.
So what we're doing tonight is just the zoning aspect of it.
Well, we would be extending it. We're
We'd
not
be
going to do
extending
anything
it.
today. We would just be
Okay.
extending it with some direction.
Yeah, you'll be asking for that conditional overlay to be developed, so you take a look at it
Right.
and tie it to the ordinance if you wish to rezone it.
Chair, I'm ready to make that motion if you're ready to take it.
Yeah, is there any other, before we move on? Okay.
When
Yeah, I'm
would
ready.
when would we delay it to?
Well, it's extended so that they can work it through. That's not to a date certain.
Yeah, we table to a date certain, extend. Just
Okay.
Then Chair, concerning ordinance 2021-45, that petition, I would make a motion that we extend this petition, giving direction to administration or staff or whoever's going to work on this, to work on the conditional overlay ordinance to allow 32 units with a maximum of 35 foot high, 100% ground floor brick stucco stone exteriors, making sure that the development has 8 to 10 guest parking spots. Each unit needs to be 1,400 living area space, 2 to 3 bedrooms. And anything else? Did I miss anything?
I think that's it.
And I think that is what I expect to be in the conditional overlay. And so
Second.
that's my motion.
Oh, second.
Thank you. We have a motion to extend to create the conditional overlay draft or ordinance,
Yeah, CO,
Yep.
CO ordinance.
CO ordinance, on proposed ordinance 2021-45 by Councilmember Heyer and a second by Councilmember Chaburka with the requirements listed that Councilmember Heyer listed. Is that okay?
Mhm.
Good to go? Okay. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Chaburka,
Aye.
Councilmember Heyer,
Aye.
Councilmember Stevens,
Aye.
Vice Chair White,
Aye.
Chair Blair.
Aye, that passes.
Chair, if I might, though, I think as a follow-up to this discussion, how we get this done is maybe a little bit of a mystery to me, but traffic is an issue. And in several places in the Mount Lewis community, 1100 North and Monroe is a sticking point, high accident rate there. 1100 North and Washington also is a problem. And I think we also ought to look at perhaps maybe what would be best on how to signal so that there can be some egress from that community, which tends to happen at Washington. So there's 900 North and 800 North that hit Washington down there. There's a light at 400 North, which is North Street, and then another light that doesn't signal anything going east, and that's at Larson Lane. So it seems appropriate that we look at the traffic patterns. Maybe our vice chair has a little input with Wasatch Front Regional Council to get something to help us with encouraging the state to do something, another light in that area.
Chair,
So
we are currently working with UDOT on getting them to try and do a study there. They'll study 1100 North and 900 North and some of the other traffic patterns. And we will also, it'll be hard for us to be able to do counts right now with not knowing when or if we'll get snow. Because when we put those lines down on the road, they're not great with plows. But UDOT right now, and I saw an email today from them, they're still working, they're still looking at it, and they'll let us know. So we are working on that very thing.
that's great. And I know we don't have any power to force you to do it, but I think you've heard the same thing we have, and so whatever's appropriate to make it
We're
happen.
encouraging it.
Yeah.
And
Great.
we did ask for that at the last time we did this.
Right.
So thanks
Well,
for
and I
taking
like
that
the
and doing it.
suggestion of possibly no parking on 900,
Yep.
if that's an issue.
I agree.
Yeah, and that should be looked at. I guess our traffic engineer's out ill. Is that right? Or,
He's back and working.
oh, wonderful. Great. That's good news.
Is it possible to look at 900 of no parking along that road?
We took that note down and we'll work on that.
Okay.
I would just like to thank both parties involved. I think Mrs. Evans talked about that community is awake, and sometimes certain community people need to be an alarm clock and wake people up, and those people who did that know who they are, and I thank you for the effort that you put into that, and for reaching out to each and every one of us, and for bringing your concerns to us. Like Councilmember Heyer said, I do believe that this is a good model of how to work through difficult issues and do it respectfully and amicably. So I appreciate both sides and the work that was done. So thank you.
And if I might just add my thanks also, as the council member that represents that's my only representation. That's you folks vote for me. I sought to represent you. I hope I have done so. I think I have, largely. So I hope if you let me know, if I haven't, you'll let me know kindly. So, because we've really tried to represent you here. And thanks for all of your good effort. I hope we all stay awake, because that's important for a community to thrive, is for people to be engaged.
I agree. Okay. Next up, we have some unfinished business. The communications plan for the proposed rezone of 835 to 875 Binford Street. And we have Ross here. Two times in one night.
Yes, this is exciting. Okay, so you might recall on October 19th, during the city council meeting, the council decided to amend the West Ogden community plan to allow a block near 835 West Binford Street to be rezoned from R15 to M1 CO. So that took place, but then the associated rezone was extended, kind of like we just did with that rezone, just barely. So this was extended to a date uncertain, because some negotiations need to take place between the petitioner and the planning office. Those negotiations are taking place right now. We don't have any definitive timeline or any ordinance yet. So that's the update to you, that we're still waiting to hear from planning on what happens next with that rezone. So I will keep you updated as soon as we get some answers from the planning office, but just to let you know, they are working with the petitioner right now. That's all that I have. Any questions?
Great.
Very
Awesome.
good, Ross.
Thank
Thanks.
you. Okay. And now we have some new business, employee stipends, and we have Ms. Jeannie Miller-Smith, the executive director, here tonight.
Thank you, Chair Blair, council members. This is something we've been talking about for quite a bit of time, trying to get it narrowed down to something that you're comfortable with. So the Municipal Code Section 2-6-9 sets forth the classification and pay plans for city employees. So all of these are subject to modification by the council. You recently actually just adopted some new pay plans for police. It sets forth and it requires those general classifications that come with those pay plans. It establishes pay ranges for positions within the city. It requires a performance appraisal. It establishes a biweekly pay schedule, and it also establishes rules for payment of services. The very last section of that municipal code, Section G, sets a total remuneration an employee may receive, but not including bonuses. And Councilmember Lopez brought up the issue of
of bonuses and was concerned that maybe there was some issues with the bonuses that were being issued to employees. So we received some information from the administration. It was clear that those are pretty sporadic and don't happen very often. And so, but there wasn't any limitation on what bonuses could be issued. So as we worked with the city attorney's office and talked with you about what you felt was comfortable, we're recommending these minor changes. So this is just kind of the section where it sets out, you know, what a bonus is. It says it wouldn't be interpreted to prevent the payment of benefits, and it wouldn't prevent annual bonuses, and we removing the word annual because sometimes bonuses are issued throughout the year. And then just this new language, it says the total of all performance-based bonuses or stipends received by an employee shall not exceed the employee's salary range authorized by the pay plan by more than 10% in any single fiscal year. And so that's the discussion that you had as council, and that's the proposal to adopt the ordinance that's before you with these changes.
Okay, any questions? Thank you.
Chair, I move that we adopt proposed ordinance 2021-55.
I'll second. We have a motion to adopt proposed ordinance 2021-55 by Vice Chair White and a second by Councilmember Heyer. Before we go into that, I know that Councilmember Chaburka just stepped out. Do we need to wait for that vote?
We still have a quorum.
Okay, sounds good to me. Yep, this is a roll call vote.
Okay, Councilmember Heyer,
Aye.
Councilmember Stevens,
Aye.
Vice Chair White,
Aye.
Chair Blair.
Aye. That passes. Thank you. Okay, next up is public comments. This is an opportunity to address the council regarding concerns or ideas on any topic. Please state your name and address for the record and limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Thank you, council members. My name's Stephen A. Bell, Dr. Stephen A. Bell, 629 North Madison, in the area that we just talked about. So I am a professor at the University of Utah in the Department of Parks, Recreation, and Tourism. I'm a recreation therapist by trade. And so I'm here about the Marshall White Center. And so I've heard a lot of interesting comments, and everything I hear, every time I hear something, it brings another thing to me. I wish I had known that we could use PowerPoints as a professor. Oh, I'm good with PowerPoints. But anyway, some of the things that I've looked at in the master plan, that it said development of tax exempt and vacant land will likely have the greatest impact on city revenue and work toward reducing the projected 2040 deficit of $10 billion. So I pulled that up because the area, the Jefferson area of Ogden City, needs attention. It needs a lot of attention, and the Marshall White Center is the hub, and it can be a hub for larger part of the city, Ogden City as a whole. That statement goes on to say that growth must be balanced to ensure land values increase in the core and not pulled to the periphery of downtown. Okay, so increasing land value, what we know that recreation is a social conduit for social good, for health, for residential improvement, and so some of the things that I've heard in the discussion was, and I saw the numbers for the survey, and you're the data cruncher, 1,100 surveys completed is a lot. And so I think, as we were talking about, the city or the the residents need to be awake or woke. These people are woke. They're still here. And so I think that the comment about having, looking at a different contractor would be, I mean, we need to have someone who knows about building recreation centers. I work in Salt Lake, I work in recreation. I've been to many of the recreation centers around Salt Lake and in Clearfield and Bountiful. So Ogden City needs a recreation center that is state of the art. And so thank you. And I hope that we build this and keep it on 27th and Lincoln.
Thank you.
We can't do that.
Please don't clap.
Good evening or good night. I'm Anna Jane Arroyo, and I'm the chair of Image the Northern Utah, and we do serve the Ogden community. I live at 738 West, 1960 North in Clinton. I just want to share with you that I did want to make some comments because I took over the Ogden Area Community Action Agency and the Head Start program with its satellites back in the day when they were in a lot of trouble. Many of you know about that. I also took over the St. Anne's homeless shelters, the chief executive officer, and the soup kitchen when they were also in trouble. And one of the first things that I did, and both of them are thriving today, thankfully, and one of the first things that I did to get those back up off the ground, on the ground and back up and financially stable, was that I held focus groups with staff and conversations with staff, customers, participants, and stakeholders. We were very transparent in the fact that we were having serious financial problems. Serious. We were about to close our doors to 400 children that we were serving in our Head Start program at that time. We also had a food bank and other customer community services, mental health services for children and families, etc. The food kitchen, you all know about that. We served, at the time that we took over, our women that needed shelter could not participate because of all of the problems that were happening outside with drugs, alcohol, fighting, whatever, and we engaged stakeholders and participants, including the Ogden City Police Department. So there was a lot of work that had to be done. We had to be innovative. We had to be visionaries. And when I heard the remarks earlier, I heard, are we a recreational center or a community center? And I thought, well, if you're a community center, a recreational center can be a component, right? If you're a visionary, that is a component of your community center. And I think that when you survey and you open up focus groups, that you present it in a way, and your questions, and you engage people in a way that they are aware that they can be visionaries in their responses. Sometimes we think, when we're taking surveys, we think that we have to respond in a way to keep what we have so we don't lose it. Does that make sense? And so we have to present it in a way, that they can be visionaries and present ideas and options for a future kind of program. Thank you for your time.
Please don't clap. That violates our rules.
Yeah, that's rules and norms.
Why do you leave claps all the time then?
Please, we're not having
ceremonial things. It's appropriate. It's not for this.
Ceremonially celebrating Anna and the Marshall White.
Please don't.
Violates our norms. Sorry, Taylor.
Thank you for allowing us to talk tonight. I came prepared to talk about transparency and in the public process, but then
Mayor, overhearing you tell Miss Betty that you've been completely transparent in this process. I guess it's a little pointless to go there, so I'm going to go somewhere else tonight. And that's something that I've talked to a couple of you about, and that's institutional racism. And let me give you a definition. Find it here. Okay, institutional racism, policies, practices, and procedures in an institution that have a disproportionately negative effect on racial minorities' access to quality of goods, services, and opportunities while advancing the larger white community. The Marshall White Center has been a recreational center for 50 years. It's been a community center, and it's been a cultural center. And now that it's lived its life and it needs a complete rebuild, what I hear you all saying is that that neighborhood isn't worthy of a $30 million investment. So I want you to think about that. It's hard for us to see institutional racism as Caucasian white people. So please educate yourself, because it really seems like that's what's happening here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can we get your name?
Oh, Suzanne Daly.
Thank you. I think clicking is the same as clapping. isn't it?
Exactly.
Yep.
Rich, just 2 weeks ago, you led a
Please,
class,
Taylor,
not
thank you.
ceremonial, for the people on 2nd Street. You broke your own rules and norms.
I did, and I acknowledged it.
And this is
You're breaking them now.
Taylor, thank you.
I'm Al Khalifa Kalishnikov, formerly 427 Jefferson Avenue. I now reside in Salt Lake City. Originally from Las Vegas, I consider the Marshall White Center a gem, a diamond in the rough, as you will, amid a city full of career politicians. And even though I am glad to be here among you, I'm an advocate of people. I'm an advocate of the people who I believe who should pull themselves up by the bootstraps. There are places like the Marshall White Center that relies on government spending, government dollars to help them and get a to utilize a center that's for cultural activities, not only cultural activities, but recreational activities, a center that pull people together for different cultural, community, and civic engagements, as you will.
Keep going. Nope.
I thought
Yep.
that was fast.
My bad.
And I just wanted to close by saying, I heard comments earlier in the work session of kicking the can down the road, and looks like going back to the drawing board and things of that nature. And we don't have that that luxury in the Black community and the brown community, a luxury of time. Time is of the essence, and as a matter of fact, you are giving the center is a center of 50 years of age and aging. You're giving it a possibility of having it to grow into a cultural preservation of a preservation acknowledgement by the state, because my understanding from my quick research on the topic in the state of Utah and most other places, it takes about 50 years to get a historic designation. And I encourage all of you to look into that, partnering with the state to trying to get a state preservation acknowledgement on the building. If you need help, there are resources towards getting that come to fruition and getting the funding that's needed as well. I understand that you mentioned something about, I believe you mentioned, Chairman Blair, that there are $5 million allocated toward the project towards restoring it. But the people want it to stay where it is. I'm sure that the surveys reveal that. And so being in that same spot means a lot to the people. I'm sure that was revealed in the survey as well. So I would encourage you guys to give the people what they want. Don't move it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Eva Barnett, and I've been a homeowner at 751 25th Street for over 10 years. When we moved in, my kids were toddlers, and now they're teenagers, and we're still trying to feel like we're really home in downtown Ogden. We chose to move to downtown Ogden because I believe every neighborhood needs good people and support. And over the past 8 years, I've worked in downtown Da Vinci as a sub at the Marshall White Center, as a teacher in a homeschooling nonprofit organization called the Ogden Weber Learner Society, which I'd like to use as a case study. We knew there was a need with our homeschoolers, a place to feel like they belonged and a place to grow as a group. And so we raised money as moms and formed a nonprofit. Our organization has grown, and we have a wait list because it's close to a freeway access point. We offer classes that the kids are interested in, and we offer a sense of family for everyone involved. Currently, we have over 120 classes a year for kids of all ages. We have people in the community come teach. We offer childcare. Our downtown can offer the same kind of connection if we allow it to. I'm so grateful that now my teens have connections with other homeschoolers. They're safe at night because we've created what they needed. I've benefited as well. I struggle with anxiety and depression, and I've been able to connect with other people in my neighborhood. Well, not in my neighborhood, in my homeschool community. I'd like to do that in my neighborhood. We need educational and recreational resources in Central Ogden. The life expectancy for those living in Eastern Central Ogden is 10 years less than the rest of Weber County. We need to be investing in our health, and we can't keep waiting. That's a statistic from Ogden Can. We need to make learning and exercising as a family easy and accessible so that low-income demographics can also improve their physical and mental health together. In downtown, where we can improve the business by bringing more people that direction. I was curious, so I went into Facebook and asked a homeschool group, how many of you would come to Marshall White Center where it is right now if it was updated? Within about 24 hours, 63 adults were interested with over 100 kids. Only 6 of these adults currently use the Marshall White Center. Some would come as far as from Kaysville, which we see right now with the Ogden Weber Learner Society. People come from Tremonton and Huntsville and Kaysville. They come because, again, Marshall White Center is close to a freeway and offers affordable classes for all ages. We're known for that. I've personally benefited from the location and price point. When I was young and only had one car, I could easily catch a ride. Even though money was tight, I knew my daughter could still gain confidence from being a ballerina, and my son could be a karate kid. I didn't have to choose between spending money on programs or spending money on gas because I could get there in my neighborhood. Going back to the Learner Society, if a bunch of moms can fundraise and service over 120 kids a year, just imagine what Ogden City can do if it connects better with current and potential patrons and validates Central Ogden's worth by investing in it where it is. We've already polled our kids once and haven't followed through with Lester Park. Please don't disappoint them again and betray that trust again. We want to connect, we want to commit, and we believe inner city Ogden is worth investing in. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi there. I want to start by thanking everybody for their time tonight. Just real quick. Thank you guys for your time tonight. We really appreciate it. Thank you, council members, for doing your duty and being here, and the administration as well. I originally, like Susie, had prepared something, and I'm only going to read part of it. Madam Vice Chair, you mentioned earlier that you're frustrated during the work committee. We share your frustrations as a community. We are frustrated that there was an obvious plan and agenda going into this, that outside advisors were paid to get an answer that they delivered that ultimately wasn't within that plan and agenda that was already in existence. And now we're told we're going to have to wait until May to do another survey to possibly get an answer that will hopefully uphold the current agenda, which is to turn the Marshall White Center into a cultural center and develop a recreational center near the library run by the YMCA. That's what I gleaned from the information that I got during the work session. I'm really glad that Susie brought it up, and I saw some of you guys cringe when she said it, but this is the definition. The Marshall White Center has been neglected, underfunded, understaffed, to lead to a point now where administration and certain members of the council can say, it's being underutilized. We have to move it to a location where it's going to get more utilized. Don't move the Marshall White Center. I had the pleasure of spending afternoons in the mid-'80s at the Marshall White Center. It helped shape who I am today. I live within walking distance from the Marshall White Center and also walking distance from the new proposed the potential location. And I look forward to my family having the opportunity to enjoy the diversity, recreation, and culture that I was able to experience at the Marshall White Center because of community elders who are in this room. I heard several times that you guys need to make the right decision. The right decision is listening to your community elders, listening to people like Mr. Ron White, who is a direct representation of why that building is so important. Make the right decision, not the white decision. Thank you.
Seeing no movement from the chambers. I was just gonna say, we have a couple that are joining us online. I was just gonna listen to them, give them a chance. Is that okay? Perfect. Brandon, are you okay to get a couple of them going? Perfect. So it looks like the first one, and I'll probably say this wrong, is a Mrs. White. So we'll Onita White, you have your hand raised, and
Can you hear me?
we can hear you. Thank you.
I appreciate this time to be able to speak. I am the third daughter of Marshall. I am 73 years old, and I left Ogden when I was 20. I came back for the dedication of the White Center after much to do, after my mother was just harassed. And I don't really believe that most of the people sitting on the board know who my dad was. And even if you don't care, the community still cares. I still care. There is no other building in the state of Utah named after a Black man. My father was a doctor who was working in the police department, who was murdered in the line of duty. Now, we can talk about systemic racism, because I know it all too well, but you know what it is, and you know why it is. The community needs a center. When I was growing up, we lived right around the corner. Our house was demolished to build the center. And its time is up for thinking about what you're going to do with poor people that need your help. They don't need more surveys. They don't need you saying that, well, it's being underutilized because it's been neglected for 50 years. And the truth is the truth, no matter who tells it. And I left Utah when I was 20 because it's racist, and it's still racist. I'm 73. I do not bite my tongue. I don't like Ogden, but that's where I was born, in D Hospital in 1948. You know the right thing to do, so it's time to do it. I appreciate the time you've given me to speak.
Thank you.
I was going to speak for you, Onita, but thanks for calling. I also have a letter that was sent to the Marshall White Center I'd like the committee to read, and I'll give it to Marcia White if I could, because the special interest group that I know you have problems with special interest. But my father had a lot of interest, and he belonged to a lot of different groups. I'd like to think that's why I'm a little quieter than my siblings and a little less, maybe a little less hateful. But my brothers and sisters were older than me, and they were at a tougher age than I was to bounce back from the loss of my father. And I know you guys, emotions, Coach Wooden used to teach that emotions were your enemy. But it's hard not to be emotional. Again, the council's history is there. The Marshall White Center is there. Marshall White Center's history is there. There has been historic problems with the Marshall White Center since since I was 6. Okay. I don't know how long each member's been on the council, but there may be some career bureaucrats here. Patience. I've been patient for 54 years. There are pages in my scrapbook that are yet to be written. Today is a new page, but it continues to ignore the Ogden City citizens. And I don't need to remind you that the citizens are your boss.
Thank you. Go ahead, sorry, yes.
Hi, I'm Dory Mosier, 459 Tyler Avenue. Hey, Tom. Hey, Mark. Hey, Mike. Angela, I haven't met you in person. Good to see you, Bart.
Yep.
Doug, 16 years now, right? Yeah. Okay, anyway, it was a dark and stormy night and I didn't have anything else to do, so I thought I'd show up at city council. I had no idea what was going on. But years ago, I did sit on the Marshall White Advisory Committee under Mayor Matt Godfrey. And we have the perfect demographics to get grants and to get sponsorships. And that building and that whole community serves the people that are invisible in Ogden, the people that don't matter to any of you because they don't bring in the money. They aren't developers. They're not probably going to show up to vote. So they're invisible to you. They are human beings. They are friends of mine. And it is the best demographic and place you can keep that. Because the systemic racism in Ogden is real. And I didn't believe it until about 10 years ago when my head got cracked open and I realized, wow, I've been living in a nice little bubble. But I will tell you what, the Marshall White building needs to stay where it's at. The people that it services, it is in the perfect location for them. And I did not see anybody have any problems picking up Union Station and finding money to run it and fund it. And I don't see it servicing nearly as many people as the Marshall White Center does. So keep that in mind when you're thinking about what to do with the Marshall White Center. Thanks.
Thank you. Please.
Okay, I'd like to change gears here just a little bit. My name's Kerry Wayne, 309 South, 1200 West. I was here a month ago asking you to work with us on the BDO development. I think there might have been a misunderstanding during the time that we were there. Over in our area, it's kind of rural, so we recognize manure, whether it's coming from a prize steer or whether it's coming from a lying politician. And so, at any rate, my neighbor, when he recognized that, he called out bullshit and somebody got upset about it. And I think that it's only because he did not want us to go ahead and believe some of the nonsense that we were being told, and we were not being able to refute it. Again, the mayor dressed down Mr. Lopez, about the Ogden Nature Center. I have the letter that shows that he did not tell the truth, and I'll be happy to give that to the councilman, and he can accept an apology from the mayor. Again, the mayor professed his heartbreak for us, the residents over in Marriott Slaterville. It takes a special kind of evil to turn around and profess that heartbreak and extend the noise ordinance, which has already been running for 6 months, which puts construction 100 feet from our front doors. We have lights that we've fought with Boyer over. We've got noise. They worked Sunday night until midnight. They came back at 3:30 and started pouring concrete again on pad 7. I call up Boyer and they say, well, you know, we're never going to do it again till next time. There's no, again, you control the land, you control the inspection, you control the code enforcement, the policing. On Halloween night, the 30th, we had them out there cutting concrete until 11:30. We called the police at 10. They showed up at 12:06 and called us back, said we can't find anybody. Again, no one, there was a Greg Montgomery said that we were invited to that public hearing on March 2nd. No, we were not. He checked the wrong block. When we opened up the meeting, the Zoom meeting, he says, what are you guys doing there? And one of the people reminded him that he'd checked the block for an open meeting. We were not intended to be there. Again, we have not had, the mayor indicated that this was all planned out since 2002. You have a land use plan right on your website that tells you that along 1200 West, it was supposed to be light industrial and office. Again, that's what's supposed to be done. Boyer has chosen, and the mayor has chosen, to put up 45-foot warehouses against homes. The setbacks, you've ignored those. Right, you're on top of the nature center if you go over there and look. I mean, it's just crazy. Again, the homeowners need some kind of relief on this. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Bryce Kautzman. I live at 335 South, 1200 West, Marriott Slaterville. And a lot of us are concerned with what's going on over there. They're not following the ordinances that you guys have set forth for them. The setback ordinance states that any wall over 35 feet is 35 feet from the property line plus 1 foot for every height. Those walls fall, they're going on the road. And it even says next to open space. Open space, I believe the nature center is open space that's being ignored. We used to be able to go over to the nature center and walk and see the stars at night. The lights from Boyer and BDO, we can't even see the stars where we live. It used to be farm country. I understand progress is coming, but them ignoring this stuff and then waking us up all hours of the morning with their construction and their permits. I have kids going to school that have to listen to that. I have a kid that just got expelled from school because he's going to school tired and frustrated that he's being removed from. I ask that you guys look into what's going on there and help us out a little bit. Acknowledge what they're doing. See what's going on. And see if we can't come to some understanding, at least make it livable over there again for us. We're suffering. And this dirt that they've dug up, I haven't been able to find the permit from the Army that they're supposed to have. That is an Ogden City ordinance that says they're supposed to have it in order to dig the ground up there. It smells horrible along there if you've been down that road. I don't know if you have, but the berms that they're digging up, and we have to live with all of this. We're used to the smell of cows and skunks. We grew up with that in that neighborhood. This isn't cows and skunks. And them flushing the animals out of the nature center, drive down 1200 West, you're dodging raccoons. Up 12th Street now, you're dodging deer carcasses on the road because of all the extra noise and stuff going on there. Even the animals can't stay. All I ask is that you guys look into this and find out what's going on, why it's going on, why aren't they following the ordinances set forth by this council? Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Eva Barnett. This is not an opinion. Can I?
Sorry.
I can't. Okay.
You've already had your sorry.
All right.
Yep.
I'll see if someone else will share.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Jenny Nagy. I live at 1418 Boughton in Ogden. I am going to keep this short and sweet because I've been here since 4 o'clock this afternoon with 2 4-year-olds because it was worth it to me to say that the Marshall White Center is the perfect place to invest in a new recreation center. I've taken my kids to the Martin Luther King breakfast there since before they can remember, since they were 1, every year except COVID. Since it opened after COVID, we love going down there, running around in the gym. We've played table tennis. We've watched the folks play pickleball. It's a great place. It's a great investment. Thanks.
Thank you.
Welcome back. My name's Shelley Kautzman. I live at 335 South, 1200 West, Marriott, Slaterville, Utah. First of all, I'd like to say, wow, you guys treat your citizens as bad as you treat everybody else. You bully them, you bully us. Congratulations, guys. I'd like to remind you, not one person from your committee has contacted us to accept our offer to come and view like you promised you would. Not one single one of you. Thanks. First of all, I'd like to address the neighborhood that I live in, the dynamics of our neighborhood. Our neighborhood is built from elderly people, people over 50. I would say probably 80% of us are over 50. Probably most of us are over 60. We also have disabled people that live in our neighborhood. And we have a few small children and young families. Not many, but we still do have a few. So when you think about impacting people, think about who you are impacting. And I hope you feel good about that, because I am ashamed of every single one of you. Every one of you. Except for Mr. Lopez. Have to say that. Second thing I'd like to address is the health issues. In our neighborhood, the increase in cancer is dominant. I think you could contact any one household that has lived there in the last 40 years. There has either been an incidence of cancer in their family, or there has been a neurological disease in their family because of the plumes that were dug and the stuff that was buried in BDO. 33 years ago, you tried to get away with digging it up in the heat of the night under lights without telling anybody. Unfortunately, 4 of us all had young babies born at that same time who were up through the night to be fed and taken care of, and noticed those things happening. The damage that you have also done by building these, reopening these plumes up, causing the disease, again, the respiratory increase, the increase in respiratory diseases. You think COVID's bad? You should feel those respiratory diseases from the plumes that have been dug up that were not supposed to be touched. They've dug down. You can smell it over there. It's terrible. I welcome any one of you to come to my house for coffee, donuts, breakfast. I'll make you tea. I'll give you your post-it, whatever you want. Come and take a whiff of that. This morning, as I put my grandson on the bus, we watched them dig that dirt up and pack it all the way down to the beginning of the nature center and then grade it all the way back down. So now it's not only going to affect us, it is going to affect those people who are working in that. Poor innocent people who are working in that. Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Chair Blair,
Yes?
if you wouldn't mind, I would love to get, I missed the name the lady that just spoke, and I would appreciate it if someone could please help me get her name and contact information, please, because I would like to reach out.
Okay, we'll get it. Anybody have it?
If she signed up on the sign up sheet,
The
we
lady,
can get it.
I don't think we got her name. Okay, go ahead.
My name's Jeff Toon, and I live at 145 North, 1200 West in Marriott Slaterville also. And the smell out there at times is terrible. What I wanted to talk about is we're directly across the street from one of the 45-foot tall walls. And we get sunlight about 2 hours later than we used to. And there's a lot of research done on depression, vitamin D, and sunlight. And one by the Sunlight Institute, and I'll just read part of their foundings on the research. While dietary intakes of vitamin D were equal to both groups, patients with depression appear to have statistically significantly less vitamin D from solar ultraviolet B. This statement is of transcendent importance due to the establishment of an important fact. That fact is that a superior form of vitamin D results from sun exposure. And my main concern is going to be the months of December, January, and February. Those months during the winter, we normally get less sunlight than we do during the other months of the year. And I just think it's going to create some problems with some of the families in our neighborhood. And we live in the shadow of that wall. Some of the other issues with living in the shadow of that wall during the winter time, I'm afraid that we're going to be basically an ice rink where we won't get the sunlight as much. We're not going to have as much melt. And also at nighttime, right now, I look out from our back porch and it's a black hole. I can't, most nights I can't see the street. And so I'm a little afraid of or concerned about safety issues, because there are people that walk along the road right there at night. And I definitely don't want bright lights shining into our house or anything, but regular street lights or something along there I think would be very beneficial. But anyway, I appreciate your time and thank you.
Thank you.
Good to see you again, Jeff.
Good evening, everyone. Betty Sawyer, president of the Ogden branch in AACP, sometimes emotional, sometimes a part of the minority voices that you continue to hear week after week and month after month, but yet I'll still be here. That's what we do. You've heard from me before. One of my concerns, and like Council Person White, I'm frustrated as well. The surveys came in probably, 6 months ago, and the discussion this evening seemed like this was the first time we really dived into what was included in the survey. Another thing is when you have 1,100 residents respond to a survey like any other political campaign, they equate that to about 10 times that many voices that responded. So 10,000 people engaged in Ogden City, we do not see that even in elections. So whose voice does matter? Because what I've heard earlier and throughout this process is that some folk voice matters more than others. Our voices have been devalued. Our history has been devalued, that of Marshall White, that of his legacy and all of the work that it took to get a Marshall White Center initially in that community on purpose to serve a large geographical area of our community. No one is told they can't go to inner city Ogden, can't go to 28th Street. People are going to choose to go where they want to go. Does that mean we don't provide a state-of-the-art facility that meets our current and future needs at that space? I don't think so. I think it's important that we value all of our constituents equally, equitably, and do what we need to do to move forward. We've been, like someone said, kicking this can down the road a long time. And I don't want us to make any more excuses for not moving. One of my dear friends and mentors, Ms. Joyce Fry, used a term in our community building about back from success. And that's what I would urge you today. Be honest and forthright. If you don't want to see it there, say it. If you don't want to see the kind of facility that the community is asking for, stand up and say that as well. And let's just move forward, back from success. We're talking about a bond. We're talking about May timeframes, all of these timeframes. Let's work together. And I would value the voice of your advisory council. The work that they've done seems to be kind of just thrown off as they didn't do it right. They were following instructions, I believe, that were handed down from this body. So maybe we could have been more clear in telling them what you wanted and how you want it delivered. But right now, it's time to act, back from success. Let's work on what we're going to do to have the center facility in that area, state of the art, and value all of your citizens and representatives or persons that you've been elected to represent. And 1050 28th Street. Bike, walk down to the Marshall White Center, all of my kids every day, all the time, for over 50 years. Thank you.
Thank you.
Taylor Knuth, 726 25th Street. I am so glad that Councilmember Heyer brought up ceremony because I had something prepared, but this is more important. This council and this administration seems to have an obsession with ceremony. I first noticed this when I was appointed to the Ogden City Diversity Commission in 2016, 15. That was about 5-6 years ago. I was a founding member. I also participated in the conversations that led to the formation of the Ogden Diversity Commission. And I guess I should be clear in stating I don't speak for the Diversity Commission. I speak for myself. I'm my own special interest group, and I don't represent the views of the Diversity Commission. But in the 6 years I have served on this Diversity Commission, there have been 9 resignations. 9 resignations from people who did not fulfill their commitment to serve on the Diversity Commission, not because they didn't want to, but because of the obsession with ceremony from the people who sit behind this, whatever this is called. Every time I talked to them, I said, "Why are you leaving?" The answer was always, "We're under-resourced. We don't have authority. This council set us up for failure." And that's exactly what you've done with the Marshall White Center. And it's exactly what you've done to those kids who are on the youth council that you appointed today. It's exactly what you've done to the Sustainability Commission that was formed last year. You set us up for failure. We do the work for free, and then you disgrace it. This is shameful. This is shameful that we have a building named after a fallen officer of the Ogden City Police Department. And in the last 6 meetings, we have clapped for our OPD. It is warranted, but we have let this building fall into such disrepair. The walls leak. The weight room was closed for COVID and has not opened. We have a roof that's brand new but still leaks. And we should all be ashamed. I think a lot about what community engagement means. That's what I've spent the last 5-6 years on the Diversity Commission doing for you all, going to countless community event after community event, getting surveys, talking to people about why Ogden City is a place where everybody belongs and why it's a special place. And it's all ceremonial. It doesn't matter. We have brought recommendations to you. We have engaged you all in authentic conversations. I met with Mark and Mike every week for an entire year when I was the chair, and none of it mattered. In fact, we are openly disrespected in your meetings with just a few weeks ago, Councilmember Heyer saying that we were unfair, biased, and we don't really approach any situation with fairness. This was said just weeks ago. It's incredibly disheartening that you all believe in ceremony, yet you roll out the red carpet for 17 noisy neighbors on 2nd Street. You eliminate a requirement to do a second petition, and they save money. It's shameful what you guys are doing. And if you can't listen to the people in this room and keep that Marshall White Center where it is, with a pool, with the namesake, I don't know why you guys serve this community.
I'm Marilyn Meyerhofer, and I live on 1245 West, 200 South, just 2 houses down from the big wall, which we call the Berlin Wall, but it's about 4 times the size of the Berlin Wall because it's blocking our view of the mountains, which I have had for almost 50 years, and my husband has had for almost 70 years. And we are just heartbroken to not be able to see the sunrise, not be able to see the moonrise, and we have noise night and day, and dirt and garbage blown down the street into our yard, 2 houses down from the corner. And I urge you to please listen to our concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you want to take some from the online? Okay, we do have a couple hands raised from those joining us online. First up, we have Heath Sato. Go ahead, Heath. This time is yours.
Hi there, Heath Sato, Ogden resident. I must say that I was incredibly happy to hear during the work session today that the mayor is really sad that the Marshall White Center has deteriorated to the condition it's in today. If only there had been an administration in office for the last decade that could have felt some sense of urgency before things came to this point. Sarcasm aside, I know you're all good people on the council and you know this isn't right. We're all being played. I think the entire goal is to drag this out. We all saw how shady they acted when they deceived you, the entire RDA, with the Brown Ice Cream Building development. You saw how the mayor cried crocodile tears a few weeks ago about the issue Carrie Wayne and others have brought up about the Boyer construction ruining the lives of an entire neighborhood for profit. You're being played. We're all being played. There are only 2 options here for why this is dragged out so long. This is either intentional or is glaring incompetence. Either is equally possible in my opinion, but if I had to put my money on it, it would be that it's fully intentional. I know many of you will consider my comments to be undiplomatic, but I think you're aware that there's truth in my comments. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you. Next up, we have Sebastian Benitez. Go ahead, Sebastian. This time is yours.
Hello again, guys. Why we are in this situation right now with Marshall White? Why? I am watching the window in Marshall White for the last 18 years. Before I own my own business, open my business, I did it with the other company I worked for before. I never see for the last 10 years, this building is destroyed. Nobody cares in the administration. I will try to be nice, like Richard Heyer's request. I will try to be nice. This situation is now because you guys. When I talk with Todd Skin, I think he's the director, the recreation or supervisor, whatever is his title there, he told me any city council been there for many, many years. Don't fire him because he told me the truth. And the other thing is, we are in this situation because this administration do not care Marshall White for the last 10 years. It's sad for me to see destroy this building because no one take care. They said $1 million per year. I don't know. I can do so many things for $1 million improving that building. Maybe 3-4 years ago, they asked donation to Mr. D, the $1.5 million to repair the swimming pool, and she denied. Where we are, I really applaud Jeannie with the lady with 2 little girls there. She's my neighbor. She was there 8 hours to speak and ask you guys, do not close, do not move Marshall White. Take care, Marshall White. Take care of the community. I love Ogden. I love it. And I will continue fighting, and I will continue be nightmares for you guys because you are not doing your duty. The only time we saw 2 city council there was Marshall White and Chuberka when Blake Moore was there, because he was there. When was the last time you walk around the building and see the trash and everything in the back? It's sad. This situation is because we don't have leadership here. And now you want to move the building or the recreation center? The community will pay you back in 2023, I promise.
Okay. We have a Tina Even Hughes. Hope I get that right. Even House, thank you. I should look to you first every time. So Tina Even House, the time is yours. Go ahead. It shows you're on mute. Maybe we'll just leave her hand raised and move on to the the next person. Okay, we have an Alvaro Parra Perez. Welcome, and this time is yours.
Hi, good evening, and thank you. I'm gonna keep it pretty short. I was moved by what people said before me, and I just want to repeat and ask you to please keep, renew, and not change the location of the Marshall White Center. I am pretty new in Ogden. I moved 3 years ago, just when my daughter was born. But even if I'm new, we have already started to build some memories in that place. My daughter has been playing soccer in that center when it was too cold to play outside. And I think it's a place that it's helping and serving the communities as it was intended to do. Let's also not forget about how symbolic this place is. Marshall White is someone that gave his life servicing our community. It's also the first building in the state that was named after a person of color. And I think it's important to care and protect our symbols. So please take care of the Marshall White Center, keep it what it is, and help the center to keep growing and to improve in the aspects that it needs. Thank you very much, and have a good evening.
Thank you. I don't see her hand raised. I don't know if she's... I lowered it. Yeah. Tina, can you hear us?
She still can speak, right?
Correct. She's muted.
She's
just muted, yeah.
She's muted.
While we're working on that, is there any other comments from anyone in the chambers tonight? Please.
I'm Chad Barnett. I live at 751 25th Street, just up the road. I would also like the council to be aware that Weber State's Dr. Catherine French Fuller conducted 4 focus groups on the Marshall White Center and its participants this last month to address the current interests and declining participation. The meetings were recorded, so transcripts are available if you want to contact her. 2 of the focus groups were for parents, and 2 of the focus groups were with teens specifically. My daughter was included in the ones in the teens. And they asked why they use the center, what they want to see there, and why attendance has declined. And all of the participants had lived or were living in inner city Ogden. The interviews showed that the numbers might be low, but the classes are at full capacity. And that's because there's just not enough staffing there. And people would often stop attending because the teachers would stop showing up to teach their classes. My wife, Eva, actually stepped in as a parent for one of these classes and began teaching because the teacher didn't show up for the classes. So if you want to contact Dr. Catherine French Fuller at Weber State for more information of the data that she gathered, you can contact her, and she has some other focus groups that are also scheduled in Spanish as well. And so these are some of the thoughts that I have as, living here in downtown. We have used the Marshall White Center and have seen that firsthand with our children as they try to go to classes there, have tried to participate in classes, but the staffing there just isn't adequate, or the teachers just don't show up for their classes. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you for your time. My name is Alicia Washington. I am an Ogden resident, and I own a business in Ogden City by the name of Good Company Theater. We are a nonprofit theater company, we being my sister Camille and I. Small-owned business by 2 Black women in Ogden City. We chose to set up our business here, but tonight I want to reflect on the Marshall White Center. Little did I know that I would be walking into a meeting tonight that would focus on injustice overall. Environmental injustice, socioeconomical injustices, and racial injustices. And it's hard to see. It's hard to work through our unconscious biases. It's even harder to work through our conscious biases once they bubble up and we're able to see them through a different lens and we address them. But some of the language that I've heard tonight from council is very charged when I hear things like, it serves that community. That community is here tonight. The Black and brown people, the queer community. It serves all of us. But that charged language of hearing that community is off-putting, but we don't hear it the same way. And sometimes when I'm out in the community and I'm approached by some council members or staff where it's like, I want to get it, but I don't get it. Pay attention to the way that you reference to the community that always shows up. That, like was said earlier, you just don't count us because we're invisible to you. We're invisible because we've learned to operate in a city that chooses to not see us. Start seeing us. Start standing up for us in immense and sweeping ways because you have the power and the ability to do so. And then I want to reflect on a comment that Mayor Caldwell that you made about the going to the Y and having the structure there, or the teachers there, the resources there. That's also embedded in unconscious bias to assume that the Marshall White Center doesn't do that, or to assume that the instructors up there are of a different, would be of a different quality, when we have people showing up for the last 50 years, known or unknown, supporting that facility, supporting our youth, and creating this wonderful network and family that upholds the Marshall White Center, which is why it hasn't died, which is why this group and new generations catch on to what the Marshall White Center is, what it stands for in our community, and we will continue to fight until we get the answer that we want. So I advise you to reach out to your advisory committees and to truly listen and engage them, and to all of the people who are here and who continue to show up. We've been ready. We're just waiting for you to get on board.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Sean Bishop, 726 25th Street. I'm a homeowner in Ogden and have been for about 5 years. I moved to Ogden in 2008 to go to school, and since then, I've heard stories about what used to happen at the Marshall White Center, what is happening at the Marshall White Center, and what is not happening at the Marshall White Center. Currently, I am on the Marshall White Advisory Committee, and as such, I'm here talking in an individual capacity, but really quickly, I will urge all of you to review the submissions that we made. A lot of the concerns, frustrations, confusions are addressed in there. There's culinary programs discussed, there's childcare programs discussed, there's a programming subcommittee letter. If none of that sounds familiar, I'd be happy to work with you to make sure that is available. It's been a long time coming. All the work that we've done, I want to make sure that you've seen it all. Because tonight it sounds like you may have not seen it all. Incidentally, I grew up in Delta, Utah and Riverton, Utah. I learned to swim at the West Millard Pool. It's a county-funded pool that's public recreation. I took karate and dance and theater classes at the Sandra N. Lloyd Performing Arts Center in Riverton City and at Marv Jensen in South Jordan. These programs not only changed my life, but I would argue that they saved my life. As a young queer kid, escaping Delta to get to Riverton, finding theater, finding friends, staying off the street and otherwise dangerous activities I could have engaged in. Those programs really did change my life and save my life. And I think there are lives not being saved and not being changed for the better because we're stuck. So my commitment to you as a citizen who happens to maybe be the chair of the Marshall White Advisory Committee tomorrow, depending on how that meeting goes, my commitment is to take that next step much faster than May and to speak to any of you and all of you at any time. We crave engagement on these committees, and it's really hard to wait 6 months from when we submitted those results on March 31st and have the first thing that we hear that it wasn't good enough, and there's no specific instructions on how to fix it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Good evening, Angel Castillo, Ogden resident. Let's talk about that survey. Once upon a time, there was a planning commissioner in 2018 who had a whole bunch of people from the community ask why anything wasn't being done by about the Marshall White Center. So that planning commissioner ran things up the chain and waited for a year, and then 2019 rolled around, and that planning commissioner, who happened to be me, said, enough. And I saw an opportunity to legally bring some attention, to bring this to you, to get you to do something about the Marshall White Center. And that legal place had to do with the fact that it is part of the Jefferson Community Plan. The Jefferson Community Plan refers to the Marshall White Center, and maintaining adequate facilities. These improvements will continue to help fulfill that portion of the Jefferson Plan Directive. Strategic Plan Directive for Recreation Budget Goals speaks to strengthen and enhance a broad range of recreational programs, infrastructures, and facilities. And that's how that got to you. And Mark Stratford was angry. But the bottom line is that it demanded action, and you took action. And I'm very, very pleased with that. That's how you got to that 300,000. And that 300,000 was when I made that motion to find out whether or not the Marshall White Center could be built upon, whether or not that it could be done in phases, that you could keep the building, gut it, use the bones, save the materials, and then build around it modularly, just like Catholic Community Services did, so that the center could remain operational. Never once in that motion, never once in that we're gonna do a study, did we talk about doing anything other than the Marshall White footprint. And there is an extreme sense of urgency for this right now, because it's not just about getting money, because getting money is not an issue right now. We have so many funding sources that are available with the ARPA grant. We have talked to state senators and other state legislators. I have talked to 2 of the top fundraising individuals who have raised over $200 million in the last few years for various projects that said that they would sit on a steering committee for this. And when we talked to those legislators wanted matching. It can be done. And there is a sense of urgency because the ARPA funds need to be spent by 2024. And we need to keep moving. And we don't need another survey. My motion was for a rec center. The Jefferson Community Plan says rec center. You can do all of those other things. You can build other modules around it, childcare, any of boxing, bigger, better. We deserve a multi-million-dollar facility. We deserve to follow the community plan. You're a big person, Rich, about following community plans. So here it is. It says recreational center. It doesn't say cultural center. It says rec center. So please, we don't really need another survey. We don't need to waste another 6 months. You know what the community wants, and that was the intention of my motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we go ahead with Shirley Miller? Okay. Shirley Miller has her hand raised, so we'll go ahead and turn the time over to you. Go ahead, Shirley, the time is yours.
Okay, thank you. I've been trying to get on for I don't know how long. I don't understand these things. This meeting reminds me of Jefferson School when my kids were young and closing it down, saying that they were really interested, had meetings, but they had already decided what they were going to do before we even had our Jefferson School meeting. So it was just something to placate us. They sent our kids in that area going to that school, which was better than the ones they sent our kids, especially the one our kids went up to. And they sent our kids to 5 different schools. So they couldn't play in their own neighborhood. They could not foster friendships up at Horace Mann, where they ended up going because they had to leave. And I would go to school because I wanted to be sure my kids were treated right because they're Black and they go into this all-white school. And I saw some prejudice already for some of the teachers. So I went there and I volunteered my services, and I was there every day, 5 days a week, just to be sure. And not just my kids, but other kids in the neighborhood, because the meeting, we were Black and poor white and Hispanic, and especially some of the Hispanics were afraid even to talk to the teachers, to talk to the administration. And I was blessed by the Lord to be able to do that and to facilitate some things. But then I saw the racism that was there and how our children were treated differently. And it's still going on. My kids went to Marshall White. They learned to swim. I went there and I had classes and I enjoyed myself there. I'm from New Jersey, okay? And so I wasn't used to this Utah culture where you smile and grin and you don't mean what you say. You stab in the back. So the council members, they remind me so much of those meetings that we went to. And eventually what happened is Jefferson School, which is now Community Action, it was no longer a school for my kids. There was no longer a community there. The kids that they were raised with and grew up with and had friendships with, they didn't have that kind of thing. And they're all off in different places, but they remember those times. They called and talked to me. You know, they texted me and told me about, yes, this is what I remember, Mom. And then I thought back of what I remember going to Marshall White, and I felt safe. I felt totally safe going there. There was never not feeling safe because the people there cared. They really cared, and they showed that they cared. And that same kind of love I got there, I got it. And I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have one other hand raised. Mr. Liddell, go ahead. The time is yours.
How's everyone doing tonight?
Go ahead.
Hello, can anyone hear
Yep,
me?
we can hear you. Are you there?
Hello,
Hello?
can anyone hear me?
Yes.
Mr. Liddell, are you able to hear us at all?
Yes.
We can hear you fine. Go ahead and talk.
Okay.
Is he muted?
Now, when do I start?
Go ahead.
Right now?
Yes, please.
Should I wait till the time goes down or?
That's your time. You have a minute left.
Oh, I have a. Okay, that's my time right there.
Well, if he's not going to say anything, we can.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm looking at the wrong screen. There we go. Okay, 30 seconds, man. Shit. Now, I pretty much wanted to talk about the fundamentals that I have a problem with.
Can you
I
state your name
really
and
just
address for
don't
the
like.
record?
This is Mr. Liddell Dick. I live in Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay. Any other comments from anyone joining us here? Please. But thank you for raising your hand.
Wait till you hear what I have to say.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chair, members of the council, and Your Honor, it's a pleasure to be here tonight. I've just looked at my watch. You've been listening to things mainly on the Marshall White Center for 5 hours. So I don't think you can be accused of not listening to what people have to say. I just want to say this. This brought back a lot of memories to be here. I haven't been in the council chambers for quite a while, but there was a time when I was here in those days it was every Thursday night. And sometimes I was accused of being a communist, and I was called a liar, and I was called all of these things that I know I'm not. And I admire you for listening to this, but I also remember a story of when I was the vice chairman of the Utah Transit Authority. And there was an issue with people who didn't have access to the buses in the amount that they really needed. And so somebody made an appointment with me, and I was at that time president of United Way, and I said, I'll meet with you in my boardroom. And it was 2:00 in the afternoon was the appointment. And not just one person, but 18 people in wheelchairs showed up. And as they talked to me, and you know, they used some bad words, not quite as bad as some of the words that were used here tonight, but it made me realize that, you know, I thought I was doing really a great job of reaching out and listening, but the Utah Transit Authority had to make some changes. They didn't have enough slots on those buses to hold as many wheelchairs as people needed to get on. There were people who came to see me that day who got on the bus at 9 a.m. so that they could be to the appointment with me at 2 in the afternoon. And it was an experience that I've thought about over and over again as I realize that we always have to be listening. And I remember the St. Francis story, the poem that he wrote that was put to music, and it was seek first to understand and then to be understood. And I think that goes not only for the city council, but for these people behind me. You know, there are people that I'm looking at right now that I have great affection for and that I know and I love and I respect because of the kinds of things they do to serve this community. But there are also people behind me that I've known for many years that I know and love because they too have the same interest in serving this community. And so I guess that experience with those people who needed more spaces on the buses and needed more help with their accessibility gave me the realization that I need to be sure I'm listening all the time. And I would just say that joining hands is better than waving fists, and using harsh words really don't get you anywhere. Thanks. It was nice to be here and observe and to be with a lot of people, both up here and down here, that I know and appreciate who care about our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bob.
I don't know if he said his name for the record because he's so famous. Did he give you his name? It's Robert Hunter.
Yep, seeing no movement. We've got one more online. Looks like I'll give you a chance on this one too. John and Peggy Cluth. We're going with Cluth.
How do we do, Jeff?
Yep.
Yes, I'm Margaret Cluthy, and I am a retired pediatrician, and I had many, many patients who lived in central Ogden in the area around the Marshall White community. And the Marshall White community was a vital part of their lives, and it was an excellent resource for me to refer patients who needed to get out. They needed to develop their interpersonal skills or their self-confidence, and I could refer them to the Marshall White Center, which was in their neighborhood. So it wasn't a long distance. They didn't have the transportation problems. And it was a tremendous benefit to the city and to our community. And moving the Marshall White Center would be like ripping the heart out of our Ogden community. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to everyone that came, stayed, spoke. I dare say we've heard for all of you, but there might be a couple that haven't. But I'm not seeing any more movement, so thank you all. I don't know if you want to move into comments from administration, if you want a chance to
Sounds good.
give you your chance at the end
Mhm.
to speak. Okay, then we'll move into, following the agenda, we'll just move into comments from administration.
Sure, I'll thank Mr. Hunter for his comments about and the reflection on us being willing to listen. I wrote down we had 26 different comments. There's no way I could address all of them. That's part of why we have these meetings, is to encourage people to come and let their voices be heard. And it's after 9 o'clock. I appreciate everybody being here, and I can assure you we've listened and we've taken copious notes, and we'll go to work on it. The part of the reason we had this is because nothing has been decided, and that's the purpose of these meetings and the separation of council and administration, to have hard conversations and to be committed to working through that. And I reiterate that commitment, and I appreciate everybody that took the time to be here. And like I said, we have notes, and we will go to work on these things, and we do talk about these in depth after these meetings, and your voices do matter. And so we appreciate the time and energy everybody's put into this, and we'll go to work on it.
Thank you. Comments from council members?
May I make a comment?
Sure.
Might as well just keep going this way. Yeah, I thank everyone for being here as well and all the comments. I'm definitely going to follow up with you all, Mary Slatterville people. It's on my list. I just want to say, I know that Councilmember Nadolski and Lopez were very upset that they weren't able to be here when this item in particular was on the agenda. We met with both the chair and vice chair of the advisory committee last week so they could get a little bit more insight before they were having to miss this meeting. So I know they'll want to follow up with everyone, but I think that it's okay for me to say on their behalf, and they can tell me later if it's not, that we're all three committed to whatever.
Councilwoman.
Councilmember Lopez is there. Great.
Chawarka?
Okay. Good.
Just,
Okay.
Yeah, I just want to let you know that I'm here listening.
Awesome.
Thank you. Thank you.
But I think I and Councilmember Nadolski are committed to making sure that whatever we decide or whatever part we're part of in this decision, that it includes the advisory committee's work and input, because we all had faith in that group when they were appointed, and we all agreed that they were the people to help us do this work, that we want them involved. So if there's continuing conversations of any kind, they absolutely have to be included. It can't be a separate conversation. And I'm not saying that's what we said tonight, but if that's thought of at all as being separate. And I would love for them to be able to present all of their information to us at some point, because I share the concerns that Taylor has, that we continually ask people to work for us, and they're very excited to engage in that process, and then we let them down. And so there's something wrong with how we're doing it, you know, and I'm not putting blame on anyone, but we have got to do a better job of that. And then just also the thing that keeps resonating with me is when Ron White said at that meeting, we've already had this conversation. He reiterated that again tonight. These are the same conversations that happened before. So it's sort of like a nightmare that it just continues happening for him, his family, the community. And so I just apologize for that, playing any part in that whatsoever. So that's all I just wanted to say.
Thank you. Do you guys care if I go? I think I have some responsibility in this. And maybe I'll give a little background. A month or, well, when was October, we kept bringing up the Marshall White Center, and what are we going to do? When are we going to hear? How are we going to move forward? Because we were happy that we had the survey. We were happy that we got the results, but we hadn't had a chance to digest the results. We hadn't had a chance to really go over the results. And in talking it over, and when I say talking it over, it was in leadership, and so I'm not including anyone else but myself in this. There was frustration that we had this information, and to me, it felt like we had been given like this grand wish list, and not that we didn't believe that a wish list was merited, not that we didn't believe a wish list was what the community wanted. It just felt like that's what that it only served that part of the equation, that is what the community wanted, and so we were trying to discuss what is the community needing? Does that blend in with what they wanted? And so in order to try and spark some movement, in order to try and spark a little bit of momentum to get moving forward and actually do something with the Marshall White Center and with the results and with the advisory committee, we drafted a letter, and I signed that letter. That was my letter. I envisioned something totally different. Like I said, we were trying to spark interest, and instead it created a fire. And I'm not saying that fire is bad. That fire is great, and it's been wonderful to hear from all of you tonight. I just want to be clear. Again, that letter came from me, and I signed it. And if there's frustration, bring it to me. It's on me, and I fully apologize for all of that. Because the Marshall White Center is so special, and it's a special tribute to a wonderful man. And I don't believe that anyone here or anyone on this dais wants to take a different side of that. We all believe that the Marshall White Center is special. It is unique, and it is an honor to have that in our community. As mentioned numerous times, there's not another center or building dedicated to a man of color or to a man who in the state, and because of that, it is an honor. Let me be clear, nowhere in that letter did I ever intend of saying that the Marshall White Center would be moved, the Marshall White Center would be taken down, the Marshall White Center would be not what it is. Because the Marshall White Center is so special and so unique and such an honor to have in our community, that's what I was trying to do and trying to create was, how can we best honor Marshall White Center? And I believe the best way, or how can we best honor Marshall White? And I believe the best way we can honor Marshall White is to provide the kind of services to a community that he wanted to provide, not only recreation but opportunity to. And that's what I was trying to do. I wholeheartedly apologize to the advisory committee. I never once meant to discredit or take away from the work that you had done. I just wanted to make sure that we were doing all we could to truly honor not only Marshall White, not only the community that relies on the Marshall White Center, but to our whole city as a whole, because everyone who lives here, everyone who's from here, everyone that loves here knows about the Marshall White Center, and everyone wants it to be a grand or a beautiful facility. And that's all I was trying to do. I totally understand the frustrations. Again, that's what started this whole process, was frustration. We just wanted to get it to move forward. And I did that. So I'll shoulder that burden. I'll shoulder the blame on that. I wholeheartedly apologize. I just, before others get up and speak about the Marshall White Center and plans to move forward and plans to see what we can do or what can be done, I just want to thank everyone, not only for being here, but thanks for the way that you did it, for coming, for telling us or proving to us how important the Marshall White Center is, for allowing us to have this dialogue. Again, it's been said numerous times, we do need to analyze, and we do need to look at things from different views and different viewpoints. And that's all I was trying to do when we wrote the letter, and it was spark that, make sure that what we were doing was the right thing and the best thing, because like the mayor and the administration have said also, we get one shot at this. I mean, the Marshall White Center has served us well for 50 years. And if we do this again, it's going to be another 50 years. And we don't want to do something that halfway or not put everything we can into it. So I apologize for that. I apologize for the outcry that it created, the uncertainty that it created, and that was never my intent. So again, I'm thankful that I was able to be here tonight. I'm grateful that I was able to listen to each and every one of you, and I appreciate everything that was brought forward and mentioned. So thank you. And I know others have comments and
Chair Blair?
say some. Yes.
May I speak?
We would love to hear you.
Chair Blair, first of all, I would like to say that my appreciation and my respect for you just went to a whole new level because of your heartfelt apology. I really appreciate what you did and what you said, because I know that's not hard to do. I often have to apologize, and I know it's not easy. So I want to say thank you for that. And I'm not going to take a lot of your time because it's late, I think, and everybody's probably tired. But I do want to make one proposal because I have a different opinion than the mayor about this meeting and this forum being the right forum to sometimes discuss these very important issues. I think our forum in the chambers, it's too bureaucratic, and it doesn't lead to authentic discussion and authentic community building. So what I would like to propose is that we organize a community event to have a conversation with people, with our residents that are in the chambers tonight, and with anyone else who is interested, to speak to us in a neutral environment, non-scripted, so much non-scripted environment, and that we try to have a good conversation. So I would like to request that, and I don't know, I'd like to request that now, and I don't know what steps I need to take to do that, if I need to make a motion, or how do we do that? And thanks again, Chair Blair, for your comments. I really, truly appreciate it.
Yep, thank you. I'm not sure either, so we'll have to discuss that and see what we can do, but thank you. Comments from other council members?
I'll go next. I've said a lot. I said it earlier. Part of, apparently there's more to the survey than what I've seen in the transmittal and in the packet. So I look forward to seeing that. Over the last couple of weeks, have been called a racist, and not caring about a certain community, and it couldn't, I do care, and I do care about the community. I've been told that I haven't been transparent in this process. I think I have been very transparent. I've had numerous conversations with many of you in this room, and others that have called, and have told them the reasons why I really believe going back and just stepping back, and not all the way, but stepping back and finding out more information is important. And it has to do with the next process. And the next process is, how are we going to fund it? And I asked the question tonight about, if this is what's presented to us, is this what we want to fund? Then we can figure that out and go forward. But we can't, yes, I don't remember who asked or made the comment. Yes, 1,100 people responding to the survey is fantastic. But we have 37,000 households that we have to convince to carry a bond. And as many of you know, the school bond the first time around didn't pass. And so we need to figure out how to fund it. And that's where I'm at. I'm already on to the next step. And so many of you think that the reason I'm stopping and slowing this process down is because I'm being racist, or I don't believe in this cause, or I don't want this to go forward. It could be further from the truth. And I would say that most likely to all of us sitting up on this dais. So we're trying to figure out, within the constraints of how to fund it and the process there. And so Again, many of us are frustrated because there is a process, and there's processes for a reason that none of us oftentimes like, but we have to follow them and get things done. I do appreciate you all coming. I appreciate you having conversations with us. And so I just, I know that you don't think that we're trying to move things along, but we are. When we're trying to figure out how to, and I've said this a long time, when I was at an NAACP meeting, I said this, we have to figure out how to make this work. And it's not just a single from point A to point B. There's a puzzle that we have to put together. And so that's all.
Chair?
Yes, please.
I think there's two elements that were talked about here tonight. One is the Marshall White Center, which is very important to us. I appreciate the comments from Bob Hunter. We need to all listen, and if we don't do anything from this meeting, then we've wasted 6 hours. That's the bottom line. So we need to move forward. And the success of Marshall White is the success of our whole community, and that's what we're looking at. I would believe that Marshall White, if he was standing here, that's what he would say. I want my center to be a center for everyone, and that's the objectives that we have. The other element that we have is I would encourage the administration to look at what's happening out by BDO. Maybe we need to see if there are elements that we need to maybe go ahead and make some change. That's the other element that we've talked about here tonight. I do appreciate your comments. I appreciate you coming. That's what democracy is. And that's why we live in America, so that we have an opportunity to voice our opinions. Now we need to act on that information that we have received. Unfortunately, my time sitting in this chair is coming to a close. But if there's something I can do to enhance that opportunity until the end of the year, I am willing to go ahead and do that.
My turn?
Please.
Very quickly, I came into this meeting convinced already that we need to do something for the Marshall White Center. I was really surprised to learn that I didn't feel that way, that I was trying to submarine this, which is not the case. And I didn't hear anybody say that they wanted to do that. I didn't hear anybody say that once. I have heard all the comments. I've made copious notes, and there are some good ideas that need to be explored. It is my intention to do that. Some different ways to fund this. You know, if we can get more money to put towards things, it's going to make it a lot easier. This decision is primarily about funding, I think. I don't see it as something different. And so that's where I find myself. I am grateful for all of the comments. Like I said, with the rezone, public engagement is what makes a community healthy, and I agree with that. I believe that's true, and it has been in living color tonight, and I appreciate that. So thank you all for sharing your time with us.
Thank you. Thank you for all the comments, both from everyone here. Believe it or not, the next thing on the agenda is adjournment. So I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Chair?
Yes. Oh, sorry, Councilmember Lopez.
Chair?
Yes.
No. I have a question. Chair, when I made my earlier comment, I just need a little bit more reassurance about whether my comment has merit and it matters. So I will be happy to make a motion to to request to have this on the agenda and on our next work session meeting to speak about when can we engage with the public to have a conversation if that's what it requires, and see where that goes. And if it fails, then I'll be quiet and move on. But I just if you can give me some reassurance on how we can do this, I would really appreciate it.
I think the leadership ought to talk about this and then look at it and see if there are room for discussion on an agenda. But I believe you as leadership needs to review this with our staff and find out what the process would be.
Yeah, I don't know if a motion, I don't know what that would.
And Councilmember Lopez, since you weren't present, right, we've appointed you to the Marshall White Advisory Committee.
Sorry, can you?
I was present for most of the meeting, believe it or not, in at different periods of times. No, listen, I just really, I think the community that came to speak to us tonight deserves to know, to have some follow-up, and they deserve from us to know when they can know more. It would be really bad. Again, I could stay here and talk about these for hours. Now, I'm not going to do that, of course. That would be so kind of disrespectful to everybody because it's late. But I mean, I have so much I'd like to say, but I can't do that right now. So our community, our residents deserve to know something that we can do to continue talking with them and engaging with them in a way that is more friendly, and not just that they're not going to hear again until May. When I mean, so that's my point. I hope you guys understand where I'm coming from.
Can I interrupt for just a second? Because I mean, I've already been invited to a community meeting that's being planned. So maybe if we just show up at that meeting, then it doesn't have to be a public meeting. We go there and we can talk to people, right?
Can I interject, because we do have a forum for this. It is a functional committee of the Diversity Commission called the Community Conversations Committee. It's been a functional committee for 3 years. We've engaged in many community conversations. We did submit a request to have a public forum on this topic on November 30th. And that's in your guys' court to approve. So we've already engaged in this process. As the Diversity Commission, it's in our charter, we're allowed to do this.
So Councilmember Lopez, did you hear?
Yes, Chair.
Did you hear either of those options?
Yes,
okay.
Yes, absolutely, and that's fine. I think that I'm okay. I'm okay if we are invited to a meeting or a town hall, and I just. The reason why I was trying to do something that was coming from us was to try, hopefully, to make have a little bit more of an accountability on our part to be there. I know we can't force anybody to be there, but that's fine, Chair. I think I can work with that, and I really appreciate it.
Yeah. So. I was just going to mention, yeah, there's different options that we have, and maybe we just have you bring it up, or we bring it up again in the work session next week and see, try to plan it a little more then when we have the calendar and everything in front of us and we're not on this.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Sounds good, Chair. I will do that. Thank you so much.
Yep. Thank you.
Motion to adjourn, Chair.
Too late. You mean you want a second?
Yeah. You made it, right?
I made it.
Oh,
I
second.
Okay, we have a motion to adjourn by Councilmember Heyer and a second by Councilmember Lopez. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That passes. Thank you.